Emmanuel, going live, please.
Yeah.
Emmanuel, please mute yourself.
So Timbuktu, Ghana, Mali, Sumanguru, you know what you're shown. What where Jagay, what you're shown. So Timbuktu, Ghana, Mali, Sumanguru, you know what you're shown. Manchester, you know Sumanguru, you know what where Jagay. Walk where you get what you're shown. What's that to do, you know? Why you know? Yes, and why you know what you're shown. Get your Israel, get my Egypt, get your Ethiopia, get Sudan, what you're shown. I walk about you know what you're for Kalacha. I get you more one year, I mean, I'm fang. I walk about you more one year for Kalacha. I get you more 1 year, I mean, I'm fang. I'm a Caminian Matu. I'm a guy on young Motu. I'm a guy on young Watumo. I'm a guy on Matu. I'm a guy on young Watu. I'm a guy on young Watumo. I'm a guy on young Watumo. We not a time. Catch him over where walk out. Banya. Kaya Jenjins are the Mababa. Kaya Jenjins are the Mababa. Kaya Jenjins are Mababa. Kaya Jenjins are the Mababa. You Mabami. Kaya Jenjins are the Mababa. Kaya Jenjins are Mababa. What you do? Kaya Jenjins are the Mababa. Kaya Jenjins are the Mababa. Kaya Jenjins are Mababa. Kaya Jenjins are the Mababa. Kaya Jenjins are the Mababa.
Good evening, and welcome to this evening edition of the Ghanaian Community Awareness Forum. My name is Emmanuel Kwesi, the chairman of Ghana Union, UK and Ireland. Today we have a very good topic, an interesting one. Interesting because it is to do with Ghana And therefore, we, the Ghanaian diaspora community here, take this very, seriously. And therefore, we are here tonight not to argue with each other, but to debate the issue. So we are not here for or against or anything. We are just here to explore the ideas that have been put before our parliament in Ghana. And therefore, whatever we do here tonight is predominantly about Ghana's bill as it is and as it's being considered or being discussed in the House of Parliament of Ghana. This program is brought to you with partnership from the Ghana Nurses Association UK, the Western Region Nurses Association UK, and the Nightingale West Nurses Association UK. Of course, with endorsement by the Ghana High Commission and support from Omega Live TV, broadcasting from City of Westminster, London. Ghana Union leading the program tonight. We want to thank the support of IT Consortium for bringing this program to you live on Facebook, YouTube, and on Omega Live TV. We also want to thank the support of BWF solicitors who have been partnering with us on a lot of initiatives, and for BWF TV channel also broadcasting to all the other platforms they have. Please, a few rules will apply. As we go in the course of the process, we will be asking you to, obviously, opportunity to ask your questions and put your questions across. Before we do that, we ask that you mention your name where possible and let us see who we are engaging with by showing your face. We will not be calling anyone who we cannot see as a person. So if you raise your hands and you don't want to show yourself, I'm afraid I will not be calling you. If you want to be called, please put yourself in a situation where we can see you. We want to engage with people. Audience will be muted throughout the session, and only the speakers will be allowed to unmute themselves as and when they need to attend to any query or questions. Where possible, say your name so that we know who we are talking to. And please use the Zoom, if you're using the Zoom as your platform to engage with us tonight, use the icon and we will attend to your chat room questions. Use the Zoom icon to raise your hands and we'll ask your questions when appropriate. Where possible, one question at a time, and please go straight to the point. Do not give us background stories. Do not give us cultural or heritage or anything. We are fully aware of all of that. We just want you to ask the question about the bill that will be discussed tonight. The topic for this evening is about the draft LGBTQI+ bill, which is now under consideration in Ghana's parliament. And tonight I'm privileged to have with me distinguished panelists who are versed in their field, who have gone through legislations from various quarters, and will be here to help us discuss the issue. As I said earlier, tonight is a discussion. It is not a forum for politicking, and we will not be drawing any government or any party's time or what decision they took or what decision they refused not to take. It's not about party. It's not about people. It's about policy that will affect or that will have repercussions on everyone who claim or who come from Ghana or who has association with Ghana. And that is why we felt it's important that we as a community here in the diaspora, UK to be precise, need to have a chance to discuss this. I will quickly take you through my panelist list. I believe I have all the panelists with me at this point, and I will be going through the panelists' biographies as we have it. We have with us one distinguished parliamentarian who hails from Ghana. He is currently a member of the 7th Parliament of the 4th Republic of Ghana, representing Ningo Pram constituency. He won the Ningo Pram constituency in 2016 with a resounding victory of 23,000 votes plus representing 63% of the total vote cast. He is an alumni of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology and University of London as an agricultural engineer. In Parliament, he sits on Public Accounts Committee and Communications Committee. He is arguably credited as one of the key orchestrators of this draft anti-LGBTQI+ bill, which is currently going through Ghana's parliament. A private member's bill which seeks to propose a law that effectively will criminalize homosexuality and many forms of LGBTQI+ support and activism in Ghana. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen and audience, please help me welcome the Honorable Sam Nate George to this forum. Honorable, you are welcome. Thank you for taking time. Much. I did speak to you and you were busy in Parliament and taking time to join us. We are very grateful.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to join you.
We also have with us our second panelist. He's a founder and a chief executive director of Bisi Alimi Foundation. He is an angelic troublemaker incarnate and an internationally renowned researcher, public speaker, policy analyst, television prudent, campaigner, community builder with expertise in sexual health, human and LGBT rights. In 2004, he was the first Nigerian to openly declare his sexuality on national television, which led to threats to his life and his resulting from leaving Nigeria and moving to United Kingdom, where he was welcomed as a refugee until he was granted British status in December 2014, and has since engaged with the media for social change on the issue of LGBTQ, but mostly in Africa and Nigeria to be precise. He has appeared on many international television stations, including CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, CCTV, and all the other outlets in Washington Post and other media platforms. He consults for World Bank on the economic impact of homophobia and serves on the bank's advisory board as on sexual orientation and gender identity. In 2014, he was featured on Voices as fellow in the Aspen Institute and subsequently named the 77th World Pride Power List. In 2015, he was listed as one of the 19 most important LGBTQ+ person in the UK. His TED Talks, There Should Never Be Another Ibrahim, was listed as one of the 14 most inspiring queer TED Talks of all time. And his article titled The Development Cost of Homophobia has been translated into over 15 languages. And his most recent article for The Guardian, If You Say Being Gay is Not African, You Don't Know Your History, has been cited in many news articles globally. Please, let's welcome Bisi Alimi to this platform. Bisi, you're welcome. Thank you so much. I know you are abroad from UK, and thank you for the time you've taken wherever you are to join us. I'm very grateful.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and love to my brothers and sisters and my non-binary brothers fellows across Ghana. Much love.
Thank you. Right, our third panelist. Born and raised in Streatham, she grew up in a working-class family on a council estate on Brixton Hill. A graduate with a Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Science with Ethics and Philosophy of Science from the University of Bradford in 2006, she then completed a Master of Arts in Medical Law, Ethics and at Queen Mary University of London, awarded in 2007, and a graduate diploma in law at BPP Law School, awarded in 2015. Her political career, in the early stages of her political career, she sat as the National Black Student Officer of the National Union of Students, National Coordinator of the Student Assembly Against Racism, the National Convener of the National Union of Student Anti-Racism Fashion Campaign. She became a school governor at St. Gabriel's College in Camberwell. Before becoming an MP, she was a chief of staff to former Labour frontbencher Diana Abbott. Subsequently, she was elected as the Labour Member of Parliament for Streatham in 2019 general election with a majority of 17,690 votes. In her maiden speech in the Commons following her electoral victory, she called for some reparations to former colonial subjects. Interestingly, one of her first news interviews as an MP, she called for decriminalization of homosexuality in Ghana, stating that it is my duty to make sure all people are free and not discriminated against. She is a Christian and a Ghanaian by descent and has served as Immigration Minister in 2020. Let us welcome tonight Bellavia Janet Ribeiro Ade, Labour Member of Parliament for Streatham, London.
Thank you, and good evening to you all.
Thank you, Belle. I know you've had a hectic week, and I'm also grateful, just as I am with everyone else. Thank you for making time with us. Our next panelist is from the royalty of Ghana, the custodian of our traditions and customs. As the Queen Mother of Jasi English in the Ghana traditional paramountcy in Ghana. She is also the president of the Ghana Adangwe Global Community around the world and the president of the National Council of Ghanaian Unions in the UK. She also sits as the vice chairperson of the Association of Ghanaian Royals in the United Kingdom and president of the Council of Unions around UK as well. Her Royal Highness is a dynamic senior Ghanaian community leader in the UK, a passionate advocate for women empowerment, violence against women, and education for girl, child, and human rights advocates. Please let's welcome Her Royal Highness Na Chuchu Soyodi first.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you
for
making
very much.
time in spite of the schedules ahead of you. Thank you.
Thank you, and good evening to my fellow panelists and all viewers.
Thank you. Last but not the least, we have with us a man of God. He's a founder and president of the Worldwide Miracle Outreach Ministries. He trained at the Budapest Corvinus University of Economics Science in Hungary and at the London School of Economics in the United Kingdom. As a PhD researcher and fellow in economics and international relations, he had the opportunity to work with many international organizations, but the Lord completely had different plans for him. As the Lord's plans unfolded, the world has seen and witnessed the emergence of one of the most uncompromising, dynamic, renowned healing evangelists of our time. He is a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts, an international evangelist, a teacher of the gospel, and an author of many books, including Count Your Blessings, Dangers of Offense, and Benefits of Anointing. In the past decades, he has ministered extensively in many international conferences and universities across the world, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, and the United States. He is a regular speaker of the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship Worldwide, and the first charismatic presbyter to be canonized by the Anglican Church of Ghana. Tonight, audience, let's welcome the Reverend Canon Dr. Lawrence Tete. Canon, good evening, and thank you for joining us. I think you have muted yourself, please. Right. Yes.
Thank you for hosting me.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. And so tonight we have our audience, we have our panelists, and I'm sure we are going straight to the business of the day so that we don't take too much time anymore. Our first panelist, as I did introduce earlier, Sam George, the MP for Ningo Prampram, will set the scene and highlight the key element of the proposed bill. Honorable, we will be giving you about 20 minutes in brief to give your opening statement on the bill itself, as you're one of the key people who drafted the bill. So
A
take
very
it.
good evening to everybody, and thank you so much. A very good evening to my co-panelists and our guests across the globe. I'm grateful for this opportunity to share a few thoughts on the bill with you. This bill largely is our response to issues that have arisen by way of the advocacy of LGBTQ in our country over the past few months, especially in January of this year. We saw the rise of advocacy for LGBTQ rights in our country. Now, this advocacy led to all sorts of challenges that we had, and this advocacy.
Right. Have we lost Honorable? Oh dear. I think we have lost Honorable, sadly. I think the network, I believe he'll be coming back. But in the meantime, if we take a 1 second break while we wait for the Honorable to return, please. The team, if you can give us a few. I believe we should be, I'm sure we should have our Honorable with us by now. If not, do we have Honorable with us or not yet? Okay. We will move on to the second panelist to share with us their work tonight while we await Honorable to return to us. So Bisi, Alimi will be looking at, our second panelist, Bisi will be looking at personal experience as a member of the LGBTQ+ community and highlights the impact of the bill on targeted groups, specifically mostly in Nigeria when that decision was taken. So Bisi, while we await Honorable, please you take the seat and take us through your presentation, please.
Once again, I want to say thank you to my brothers, my sisters, and my non-binary families across Ghana. To my trans family, I remember you on this week of Trans Remembrance. And to our fathers and our mothers, our brothers, our sisters that are in the space tonight, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity as a Nigerian to be part of this conversation. And like you've heard, what I'm going to share with you tonight will be an experience from the position of Nigeria regarding what Ghana is currently going through. I'm going to be sharing a slide with you. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and my journey in life. I'm also going to tell you a historical outline of the Nigerian Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act. which is in a way very similar to the law that, or to the bill that you currently have in Ghana. I'm going to try and give you an idea into the arguments that I've heard over time that have been proposed as a reason for passing this bill, which includes public opinion, which includes the argument of family values. It talks about African traditional culture and values. But also I'm going to share with you 7 years later, after the Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act was signed into law by President Goodluck Jonathan, what has been the situation in Nigeria. I'm going to share some case studies with you. And finally, I'm going to share with you what can Ghana learn from this experience of Nigeria. I think the most important thing about this is that whatever is happening in Ghana, it can be seen in relationship to what has happened in Nigeria. And we can make a projection from it, right? That based on all the analysis that we have, based on all the experiences that we have, that if this bill becomes law in Ghana, we have an antecedent to what has happened in Nigeria as a basis to evaluate it. The good thing about Ghana is the fact that while this was happening in Nigeria, there was hardly any comparison, any settings, any country, any society to look at. Ghana has this opportunity. And I hope that tonight, you all will take something on.
Okay.
Now, like the presenter said, I'm not here to emotionally blackmail anyone. I'm here to give you facts. And so before I go on, let me talk about myself. Like you might have heard, my name is Bisi Alimi. And I was born in Lagos, Nigeria, 46 years ago. I spent all my years in Lagos. I was actually born in a place, if you're very familiar with Nigeria, called Mushin. I became aware of my sexuality at quite a very young age, actually, at the age of 8. And the reason why I became quite aware of my sexuality is because I grew up in a very big home. I'm from a polygamous family. So I have a brother and I have 3 other sisters, with 5 of us. And I realized quickly that I was never like my brother. I wasn't into the things that my brothers were really interested in. And that for me at a very young age was a sense of awareness of the fact that something about me does not fit into what the society has framed, whatever conditioning that they frame it to be. Also, I need to say this, I grew up in a very religious home. My father is a Muslim and my mother an evangelical Christian. So at a very young age, I have heard the words. I have heard them said in churches, I've heard them said in the mosque, and I've heard them said at home about anything that is not heterosexual and the God's ordinance for all of this. And I'll try and talk about the ordinance of God later on. So I was in the consciousness of this. And this consciousness played a pivotal role in my life. So much so that when I was 17, confused, angry, with no support whatsoever, and no one to look up to, I attempted my first suicide. And I always like to make clear, because some of the arguments you will hear tonight is that LGBT people suffer from mental health. Yes, they do. And that is true, because there are signs that back that up. But what you're not being told is that I don't have mental health because I'm queer. I have mental health because I'm hated for being queer. I have mental health because I am conditioned to hate myself for being queer. I have mental health because of bills like this that questions my existence in this life. So because of the things that I've been fed and I've been told, I have a mental health. I did not have a mental health because I am who I am. So I struggled from the age of 17 up until the time that I was 29, when I graduated from university. And I had my big break on TV. I was an actor, and I came out in 2004, making me the first man to ever do that on national television in Nigeria. Again, that changed the whole narrative about invisibility. It changed the narrative about the fact that we don't know. Because now you know. What do you do with that information? Let's open it up. Let's talk about it. What followed was so harsh. Condemnation from religious organizations. Political elites felt like what I've done was an atrocity against the fundamental of Nigeria as a nation and Nigerians as a people. I was punished for it. I was punished not because I lied. I was punished not because I pretended to be something else. I was punished because I dared to live my truth. I was punished because I made a decision not to deceive a woman and marry a woman. I was punished because I made a decision not to have children that I would not love. I was punished because I dared to say, this is my life, and I want to have the opportunity to live it the way that is best. And with that, I had to run out of Nigeria. In 2007, I fled Nigeria and I moved to the UK, where I sought asylum. And 5 years later, I became a citizen of the United Kingdom. Nigeria is in my home. Nigeria is in my heart. And as I'm speaking with you now, I'm actually speaking with you from my house in Lagos, Nigeria, because it matters to me. I am equally an African as the people who said, or the people that passed the law. I'm equally an African and equally a Nigerian as whoever we speak for or against this conversation tonight. And I think that is what is important for us. Because who decides who is fit enough to be an African, to be a Nigerian, to be a Ghanaian, and who decides who is fit, not fit enough to be? So let me take you through what happened when I came out in 2004. There were a lot of conversation that was going on. Less than 18 months later, because I came out in October, a bill was introduced into the parliament in Nigeria called the Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act. In the parliament of 2006, it did not pass. There was a conversation that was going up and down. In 2007, there was a public hearing in Abuja. I remember that day very well. It was February 14th, Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2007. We were in Parliament begging and appealing to Nigerian lawmakers. On the day the world was celebrating love, we were appealing to the National Assembly in Nigeria to give us a sense of dignity. There was never at any time, and again, I know this is similar because I've spoken to people in Ghana. There was never at any time the LGBT community in Nigeria, nor the LGBT community in Ghana, demanded for anything. I listened to the Honorable Member of Parliament, and he's talked about the advocacy of the LGBT people, the advocacy to have access to health, the advocacy to have access to medication, the advocacy so that they stop being molested by the institution of state, the advocacy so that they be protected by the legal mechanisms that are available in the state. There was never, and there will never be a time, and I can say this, maybe not now, that have been a clamoring amongst the LGBT community, either in Nigeria or in Ghana, for marriage, for the dissolution of the family, for redefinition of marriage. There's never been a time that the existence of LGBT people has threatened the idea of a heterosexual union. Never at any time. In 2013, the bill was passed in Parliament and it became the Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act. In 2014, this bill was signed into law by the then President Goodluck Jonathan. To give you an idea of some of the reasons that were used for the passage of this bill, there was the idea that there was a clamoring for this by Nigerians based on public opinion. The Nigerians want the criminalization of LGBTQI people. There was an idea by religious institutions that LGBT people challenges the ordinance of God according to a marriage between a man and a woman. There was also the argument that the existence of LGBT people will pose a danger to the construction and the idea of the family unit. These were some of the things that were put forward. So when the law was passed, Nigeria reaffirmed one thing, that marriage should be between a man and a woman. But the law went further, and the law said, any organization or groups or individual that support same-sex marriage in Nigeria will be punished. Anyone that gets married, anybody that gets married in a same-sex situation will go to jail for 14 years. Anyone that attains such marriage will go to jail for 10 years. Any religious institution that solemnizes such marriage will be fined, and the head of that church will go to jail. Nigerians were not allowed to set up organizations, club, association, or even to fund those organizations or associations. By this time, I am guessing, oh, this sounds familiar. Well, if it sounds familiar to you, it's because we're playing and we're singing from the same hymn book. Because the law that you have in Ghana now, there's nothing new about it. It's a template that has been passed from Russia to Nigeria and to Uganda, and now it has found its place in Ghana. But one fundamental argument that has been used for this is public opinion, and rightly so. Because when Goodluck Jonathan was about to sign the law in 2014, he said there was a huge public support for this bill. Well, let us take a pause and remember that there was never a huge support on a political manifesto on any political party in Nigeria that when you get elected, you must go to parliament and criminalize same-sex relationship. There was never anything like that. And I'm sure at the last election in Ghana, Honorable George did not knock on the doors of his constituencies and say, vote for me, because if you vote for me and I'll go to parliament, I will pass a bill that will criminalize LGBT people. I've listened to a lot of interviews that he has given. His argument has been that there's a huge support amongst Ghanaians for this law. But what else do you expect? Isn't this a very simple game of computer? You garbage in and it garbages out. So when you feed the frenzy, you feed the people to hate a particular group of people. And then you sample the same people you're fed fear to about a certain group of people. And then you sample them to know if they fear those particular group of people. And based on their conclusion of fear, you are trying to pass a law to justify yourself. And I'm sure there must have been a place we've heard something very close to that. Nazi Germany. Because Hitler was very strategic. He had to feed the Germans that the Jews are to be feared. And then he had to find a reason to support the idea that the Germans are afraid of the Jews so that he can do what he had to do to the Jews without feeling guilty about it. I'm not saying that this law is proposing a concentration camp in Ghana. But what this law is about to do is nothing short of that. So when we look at support for the law, I listened to the Honorable in one of his interviews, I think with the CNN, and he talked about 97, 96. The same thing happened in Nigeria. It's a trend. In 2010, 96% of Nigerians were in support of the law. 5 years later, that dropped to 87%. But it didn't stop there. When we look at the trend between 2015 to 2019, 4 years, 2015 is in blue, 2017 is in yellow, and 2019 is in green. You can see the way that things are shifting. And you know, I remembered when I did an interview with Christina Mampo the night that the bill was signed. I said, for once in my life, I am happy that finally this bill has passed. Because the repercussion will start and Nigerians will start feeling it. Because again, when you look across board, the indicators that were used to sign this bill, and when Nigerians started feeling the impact of the bill, of the law, people started asking questions. Hearts and minds start changing. And you can see the way the trend is changing and it continues to change. So I talked about what are the arguments that are being used to support this law. Divine ordinance is against the law of God. But the Bible reminds me that God is love. That's what the Bible reminds me. And judgment is of the Lord. That's what the Bible reminds me. It talks about procreation. And the interesting thing about procreation, we forget that procreation is a choice. But more importantly, we make people believe that if you're LGBT, you cannot procreate. And we know now that that is a lie. It is not true. But I think more importantly is because this challenges the patriarchy, heterosexual understanding of roles and expectations. I am married to my husband. So many times people ask me, so who is the wife? Who is the husband? It's a typical question I get every time. And I said, there's no wife, we're just two husbands, two people in love. So how do we tell this to our children? How do we explain it? We come to the idea it's not good for kids. But we know science after science after science, researchers after researchers have told us that even kids that are brought up in same-sex family do equally, even if not far better than kids that are brought up in heterosexual family. But this is not a time for comparison. This is a time to diffuse this argument, to break it down. There's the argument that it is an African. It's against our culture and tradition. It challenges the essence of who and what we are. I've heard that it's a plot to destroy African tradition, and our ancestors are against it. All of these are pure emotional rants, because there is no one that can tell me here that they know for a fact that homosexuality is un-African. There's no one here who can tell me for a fact that it challenges the essence of being an African, because then you will have to tell me being an African is monolithic in of itself. So I'm going to present some arguments, and I'm trying to round up here. And I'm going to try and make sure that the argument that I'm going to state here are facts. They're not emotional. So when people say it's against God's ordinance, I ask a question: which God and whose God? I don't want to go too deep, but I'm going to leave it there. Whose God and what God? So when people say it's procreation, can LGBT people be parents too? The answer is fact. I can be a father. I can procreate just like an heterosexual person can procreate. We demystify the roles and the challenges of patriarchy. That's also one of the challenges that this argument is presenting. And we're increasingly having data, like I said earlier, that are showing that kids growing up in LGBTQ households are doing equally, even sometimes way better than kids that are growing up in heterosexual homes. So in 2014, Goodluck Jonathan signed the bill into law. The first thing that happened was the Sharia case in Bauchi. It was immediate, the same week. A young man was arraigned before a court, a Sharia court in Bauchi, on the accusation of homosexuality. 2 weeks after that, a group of young men invaded the homes of 2 people they accused of being gay in Abuja, beat them up, burnt all their properties and set their house ablaze, ran them out of town. In Delta State, a young man was killed. And in Lagos, many of you will remember the case of the 57 men. These were men that were rounded up at a party by the Nigerian police, accused without any evidence of being gay. These were young people who were attending a party in Lagos. They were paraded on national television. They lost their jobs. Many of them lost their homes. Until today, many of them have never been able to get their lives back. They are brother to somebody, an uncle to somebody, a son to somebody, a best friend to somebody. And that moment would change the life, not of just theirs, but everyone that is linked to them. I am not a prophet of doom. I didn't come here to scare anyone. But this is the reality of what is about to happen in Ghana. And like I said earlier, I've listened to the honorable member. He has talked about the reason why this bill is necessary. He talked about public opinion. He talked about the fact that he's an African. He talks about family values. There is an argument of social cleansing. We need to get rid of the gays. I remember one question that was put to him on CNN. Now, where do you want these people to go to? So they can go somewhere else. Can you imagine that a citizen of Ghana is telling another citizen of Ghana, go somewhere else? Ripping away the identity, the pride, the Ghanaian integrity that another Ghanaian has just because you think that you can. And this all boils down to political positioning. But more importantly, this is a situation of the voice of Cain and the hands of Abel. And what do I mean by this? There are fundamental questions that are not being asked. Why does this bill look like the bill from Nigeria? Why does it look like the bill from Uganda? It's simple. Who is funding this bill? Because if these parliamentarians are particular and interested in Ghana, then we will be talking about something that will benefit every Ghanaian. Criminalization of same-sex relationship amongst adults benefits no one in Ghana. No one. It doesn't provide jobs. It doesn't provide good healthcare. It doesn't provide good roads. It doesn't provide security. It doesn't do anything. So why is there no attention to better education in Ghana, to better infrastructure in Ghana? Why there are no bills to ensure the increase in Ghanaian tourism to bring more money into the pocket of every Ghanaian? Why then is there a bill to divide Ghanaians, to pitch Ghanaians against Ghanaians? Why is there a bill to deny real Ghanaians the access to the Commonwealth of Ghana? Why is there a bill that is going to deny Ghanaians access to healthcare, access to security, access to good life that every other Ghanaians will enjoy, just simply on the basis of their sexual orientation? Because it happened to me, and I'm just one of so many Nigerians. I am one person that hardly had a chance to see my parents. And there's so many other people like that. There's so many other parents that are looking back and realizing they've been played. My role tonight is to tell you, Ghanaians, please don't get played. So when you leave here, ask question, what really is the essence of the title of this bill? What is a proper human sexual right? What are Ghanaian family values? Do we understand human sexuality enough in Ghana to legislate against it? Do public opinion supersede the right to privacy and essence of being a person? Ask fundamental questions. Even if you are in support of this bill, be curious, ask questions, because it's important. I'm going to end with this. Hey, they come for the Jews. You don't care because you're not a Jew. Tomorrow, they come for the women. You don't care because you're not a woman. Tomorrow, they come for the people who are disabled. You don't care because you don't have disability. But remember that when they come for you, there will be no one to stand with you. This is a pivotal moment in Ghana. It's about Ubuntu. It's about collectiveness. And this is a time for Ghanaians to stand with one another. Thank you very much. My name is Bisi Alimi, and I'm done speaking. Thank you.
You're muted, Emmanuel.
And so
Hello? We can't hear you. Hello? Okay, so am I allowed to speak? Because I can't hear you. Mr. Quayson, it seems you've muted yourself. So can I speak now?
we need Bisi to unshare your screen, please. Right, okay.
I'm struggling to hear you, Mr. Quayson, but I don't know if I'm allowed to speak. Just give me a thumbs up. Let me see that I can speak. Okay, I assume that I'm allowed to speak. And let me say thank you to everybody, and thank you to, I would want to call him Bisi, even though his real name is Ademola, his birth name is Ademola. I've listened to him almost 30 minutes. This bill, quite a number of things were said, in direct reference to things that I may have said or not said, or what my intentions are. I'll address them, but let me just give the general overview and say that this bill is a direct response to the attempt to advocate for what you would call the legalization of homosexual activity in Ghana. People have asked me, why did this start? I mean, in January this year, we saw the opening of an advocacy office in Ghana that sought to advocate for rights for the LGBTQ community. In March of this year, I read a statement on the floor of Parliament and said that we were going to ask for specific legislation to be passed. Now, let's make this clear. For LGBTQ plus activists who think that Sam George and his colleagues are introducing a bill to criminalize homosexuality, a lot of this, and I take it into context that the pro-LGBTQ advocate spoke within the Nigerian context. I am not making laws for Nigeria. I am not making laws for the UK. We're making laws for Ghana. And so it must be looked within the Ghanaian context. As we speak today, homosexuality is illegal in Ghana. Section 104 of the Criminal Offences Act, Act 29 of 1960, makes it criminal. And I could just read exactly what Section 104 says for the purposes of our listeners. Those who are not familiar with Ghanaian law. Act 29 of 1960 says in Section 104, a person who has unnatural carnal knowledge of another person of not less than 16 years of age, without the consent of that person, of that other person, commits a first-degree felony and is liable on conviction to a term of imprisonment of not less than 5 years and not more than 25 years, or of another person of not less than 16 years of age, with the consent of that person, commits a misdemeanor, or C, of an animal commits a misdemeanor. Then 1042 says unnatural carnal knowledge is sexual intercourse with a person in an unnatural manner or with an animal. So clearly, as we speak today, whether the bill I have sponsored with my colleagues before Parliament passes or not, we have a law that criminalizes homosexuality, and homosexuality is criminal in Ghana. So this has nothing to do with St. George. So there exists a legislation already. I just want us to have that on record. Now, when you take the Constitution of Ghana, I hear a lot of people talk about rights, and the LGBTQ advocates spoke a lot about rights, and they're human beings, and they just want to have the chance to live a regular life like everybody. Well, nobody has stopped them from living a regular life like every other person. Heterosexuals have sex in the confines of their room. They keep their sexual activity to their room. They don't come out advocating to have what it is that they do in the confines of their rooms, which is private, as matters of public discussion. And so when people say that they're trying to advocate for, if it's your private business, keep it in your room. That's basically what we're saying. But you see, we need to decide here that Ghana is governed by the 1992 Constitution. The 1992 Constitution in Article 12.2, which is in Chapter 5 of the Constitution, spells out what the fundamental human rights are. In fact, and again, I would read, because a lot of the things I'm saying are not what I want to say. They are what the Constitution and law. I'm a lawmaker. And so everything I do is on the basis of law, not emotions, as has been suggested by the LGBTQ advocate. Article 12 of the 1992 Constitution says protection of fundamental human rights and freedoms. And then it says the freedoms enshrined in this chapter shall be respected and upheld by the executive, legislature, and judiciary, and all other organs of government and its agencies, and where applicable by them, by all natural and legal persons in Ghana, and shall be enforceable by the courts as provided in this Constitution. But the important part is 12.2. Every person in Ghana, now listen, whatever their race, place of origin, political opinion, color, religion, creed, or gender. Gender is not the same as sexual orientation. It says gender. And the Constitution recognizes gender as male and female, binary gender, shall be entitled to fundamental human rights and freedoms of the individual contained in this chapter. However, it doesn't end there. It continues and says, but it is subject to respect for the rights and freedoms of others and for the public interest. So your rights that you enjoy in Ghana, your fundamental human rights in Ghana are not absolute. Article 12 that gives you the fundamental right in 12.1, in 12.2, says that the enjoyment of that fundamental right is only permissible if it does not infringe on the freedoms of others, if it has respect for the right of others, and if it is in the public interest. This is the Constitution. I'm not saying this is the Constitution. And so when people say that, on what basis are you seeking to curtail rights of individuals? Well, there is the public interest in there. Now, if you read Article 17, again, and a lot of people read, those who promote LGBTQ or support LGBTQ, read Article 17 of the Constitution. They read 17.2, where they say a person shall not be discriminated against on the grounds of, again, listen, gender, race, color, ethnic origin, religion, creed, or social or economic status. No reference is made to sexual orientation in there. But you see, what they failed to do is to realize that in the same 17, if you go to 17.4, it says that those rights, nothing in this article shall prevent that, and nothing in this article is referring to Article 17, which has just given you the freedom from discrimination. It says nothing in this article shall prevent Parliament from enacting laws that are reasonably necessary to provide for the impositions on of restrictions on the acquisition of land by persons who are not citizens of Ghana or on the political and economic activities of such persons, and for other matters relating to such persons. So you realize that, again, the rights are given, but there is exemption given. So there are exemptions also even in there. Then you go to Article 39 of the Constitution, and I'm doing this so that the gentleman from Nigeria would appreciate that this is Ghana and our laws are different from Nigeria. I don't know the Nigerian constitution, but I know the Ghanaian constitution. Article 39 is the cultural objectives imposed on the state. Article 39(1) says, subject to clause 2 of this article, the state shall take steps to encourage the integration of appropriate customary values into the fabric of national life through formal and informal education, and the conscious introduction of cultural dimensions to relevant aspects of national planning. If you want me to read the two, because it says subject to clause 2 says, the state shall ensure that appropriate customary and cultural values are adapted and developed as an integral part of the growing needs of the society as a whole, and in particular, that traditional practices which are injurious to the health and well-being of the person are abolished. So clearly, on the basis of Article 39 and all the other provisions of the Constitution, 17 to 17(4), D, 12(1) and 12(2), we are standing on solid legal basis in Ghana to pass legislation that is against public interest and acts that are against public interest and public health. Now, I mean, it's important that we state this, and we cannot run away from it. We've got into the place where there are no kids' gloves here. We must state the fact that it is 40 times more likely for a man having sex with a man to contract HIV/AIDS than a man having sex with a woman. And this is fact. The fastest growing demographic of HIV infections in Ghana are men having sex with men. People look at it and say, oh, they say only 18%. 18% of what population? That's how you do statistics. 18% of a population of 50,000 people, as against whatever percentage of the rest of Ghanaian men. And then you see what the infection rate is in that category. And that's how you know that that is driving homosexuality. In fact, the Ghana AIDS Commission, when they appeared before Parliament to make their statement, made the point that they receive funding to the tune of $106 million yearly. $106 million to support men having sex with men and their fight against HIV. And so if people are asking you, what is the effect to us, the rest of society, of the activities of persons who are doing their own thing? Well, heterosexual sex is not costing the state $106 million. That's the point we need to make. Again, when you speak to the doctors at Kolebu and they tell you the instances of anal warts, the instances of anal lacerations and fecal incontinence, and cancers that are happening as a result of homosexuality, especially among men having sex with men in Ghana, you will then understand the strain that this is putting on our limited healthcare resources in the country and why this is a public health risk. It is public knowledge that the advocate who spoke on behalf of the LGBTQ community, Mr. Ademola, who calls himself Bisi today, has contracted HIV after he came out as a homosexual person. That is evidence, clear evidence of what we are talking about, that men having sex with men is inimical to the public health and well-being of the Ghanaian people.
Excuse me.
You see, the
Excuse
point
me.
also needs to be
Excuse me.
made.
I have
The
a
point
right.
also needs to
I
be
have a
made.
right to disclose or not disclose my HIV status.
I would
I have
be
a
grateful
right.
if you. I would be grateful
I
if
have
you
a
were
right to
quiet. You
disclose
made
or not
direct references
disclose
to
my
me.
HIV status. No, I have a right to disclose and not disclose my HIV status.
Well,
I
this
did
information
not
is on
give you that
Wikipedia.
right.
It's public.
No,
It's
I
public.
did.
It's on
It does not
Wikipedia.
matter.
So
It does not matter.
so,
I did
but
not
why are you running
give
away
you
from
that
it?
right. I did not. No,
When you
I'm
were
not running away
speaking,
from it. I did
so
not
let me
give you
continue.
that right.
Let me
I
continue.
did not give you that
You
right.
got HIV
to
AIDS
disclose
because
my
of homosexuality. Let
I did
people
not
know
give you
that
that right
is.
to
Let
disclose
them
my
know that that
HIV
is the
status.
effect of what you are promoting.
Wait,
Let people
I did
know.
not
Why
give
are you
you
running
that
away from
right.
it?
I did not give you that right to disclose my HIV status.
I don't
As
need
a
that
lawmaker,
right from you.
as a lawmaker,
I have
you
the
have just
responsibility to
violated.
expose. I have the responsibility to
As a
expose.
lawmaker, you have just violated the right to confidentiality. You violated my right to confidentiality. I did not give you permission to disclose my HIV status. I did not.
Will the host regulate this conversation? Because when he was speaking, he made specific references to me that were false. I wrote them down.
I did not make any references
grateful.
to you. You
I'll
said
be grateful if you
on
ask,
CNN.
if you mute him.
I did not give you permission to disclose my HIV status. I rest my case.
Are you done speaking? Well, you have not shared any information with me for you to say I've breached confidentiality. So I've breached no confidentiality. Confidentiality is a legal matter. If you don't understand it, get an education on it. But the point must be made that the information that he contracted HIV by way of his homosexual activity is public information on Wikipedia.
When you don't have anything
Google,
to say,
come on,
you go on a personal attack. You are on a personal attack because you lack substance. You lack anything to say. You don't have anything to say. So you go on a personal attack. You have 20 minutes to make your case on why you're supporting this law. You can't because you have no substance. So what are you doing? You're personally trying to drag me into the mud with you, but I won't go there. You can continue.
Are you done ranting? It's on Wikipedia. A simple public Google search of the name of the individual will establish to you his HIV status. And for me, my point is, why would anyone be afraid to share information which is consequence of the action that they are promoting? Why would anyone do that? You should let people know the consequences of what it is that you're promoting. You should be proud. You should wear it as a badge. It should not be a confidential matter.
Please,
and let me state clearly, yes.
Honorable, thank you.
Yes.
But Bisi, can you please allow Honorable to finish his point, and then you have another chance to come back. We are not arguing against each other. We are debating the issues. And I do appreciate where you're coming from.
We're not debating something personal. He disclosed an information that I did not share with him.
All right, so you have your time to come back and say that. Let's not talk over each other's voice, please. When you have the time, you can share your reasons for saying so. So please let Honorable finish stating the point, and then we'll come back to you at a later stage, please. Thank you. We are on a public view. We are broadcasting this live around the world, and we have to exercise a bit of restraint. Thank you so much. Honorable, please.
I'm grateful, Mr. Quayson. But when we are discussing this, we must have a very frank and open discussion so people understand and appreciate everything that we're talking about. Now, several questions were asked when the pro-LGBTQ advocate spoke. Who decides who is a Ghanaian? This bill is not determining who a Ghanaian is. It does not speak to your nationality. It doesn't speak to your identity, except it deals with the issues of homosexuality. When you take the bill and you read clause 6 of the bill, in clause 6 of the bill, we clearly state in there what this bill is criminalizing. Nothing about nationality exists there. So they would need to familiarize themselves with the bill. I mean, I keep saying, you want to debate me on the bill, read my bill and debate me on my bill. The bill we have presented to Parliament is different from the bill that went to Nigeria, the same-sex marriage law in Nigeria.
No problem.
Because
so we're okay now, yeah?
There's quite some feedback. When you look at the Same-Sex Marriage Act in Nigeria, that's completely different from the promotion of proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian Family Values Bill in Ghana. Because The Nigerian bill is talking about same-sex marriage, and that's the focus of it. We are focused more on the advocacy of homosexuality and the act of homosexuality. That's our focus. The right to marry is dealt with in our bill. But again, when someone says that it is the same bill, it's the same template from Russia to Uganda to Nigeria, why do you expect it to be different? We are fighting the same thing. We're fighting homosexuality. But who says that the template is not the same for the homosexual community? Who says that the way they encroached and made strides in Europe is not the same thing they tried to do in Nigeria that Nigeria responded to? And it's not the same thing they're trying to do in Ghana that we're responding to. So they are using a template. They come in and say, oh, we are only trying to ask and fight against discrimination. I have had the opportunity to engage persons in that community in Ghana and have asked specific questions. Can you show me evidence of discrimination against any person in Ghana on the basis of his sexuality? Okay. Can you show me that a child or a person was refused admission into a university in Ghana or a secondary school in Ghana because of their sexuality? Okay. Nobody asks you your sexuality on any admission forms in Ghana. Can you show me that anybody went to a public hospital in Ghana, even when they go there with fecal incontinence, the doctor still treats them? Can you show me that anybody went for a job interview and the HR person asked him, are you straight or gay? No, there is no evidence of all of this. So there is actually no discrimination against this person, because unless and until you decide to wear it as a badge on your forehead, nobody knows what you do in the confines of your room. And that's what this law is saying. Keep whatever it is you do in the confines of your room. So when he talks about them wanting to advocate for access to healthcare, well, they have access to healthcare in Ghana. When he says they want to advocate for access to medication, I just told you the Ghana AIDS Commission is spending $106 million. That's what the Ghana AIDS Commission Director General himself said last week in Parliament. $106 million to buy antiretrovirals for HIV patients coming out of homosexuality. 106 million. That's money that could be used to fix roads or build schools or drill boreholes. When he was asking me if those are the things that matter to my constituents, that's my response to him. We're using it to buy antiretrovirals to treat the HIV that they've contracted because of their homosexuality. And that poses a public health and a public interest consideration in curtailing their rights that they claim they have, even if those rights do exist. Now, you see, the point is made that yes, I didn't campaign when I stood in 2020, and in the introduction, you spoke about 2016, where I won with about 23,000, 26,000 votes. In 2020, we won with almost 50,000 votes by God's grace and due to the hard work. But when I campaigned, yes, I didn't campaign on LGBTQ. However, as a member of parliament, I do not wait for 4 years before I take action. That's why I constantly hold community town engagements. And on this bill, when I read the statement in March, I have evidence, I have videos, it was put on social media. I had held 18 town hall meetings, 18 in my constituency, 18 town hall meetings, where I engaged my constituents and said to them, this is a matter that has come before us in parliament. These are the steps I want to take. What are your opinions as my constituent? You have asked me to go to parliament. Do you want me to sponsor a bill or do you want me to stop it? They said sponsor a bill. I spoke to the 2 traditional councils that I have in my constituency. They said to me, go ahead, it's against our laws. So when I go to sponsor a bill, I do so not in my capacity as Sam George, but I do so as the member of parliament for Ningo Pram Pram on the instructions of my constituents. So that's what my constituents have asked me to do. Pass a bill to criminalize something or strengthen the laws that already criminalize something that is a cancer and is a growing menace in our society. You can describe this bill as being synonymous to Nazi Germany. That will be that's within your right, and it's fair. But I leave the judgment to everyone. But you see, when they make the argument, proponents of LGBTQ legalization make the argument that God is love and this is a hate bill and that God only loves people, I ask them, what part of the Bible are they reading? God is love, but that same God of love says that on the final day, those who he does not find fit and befitting of his kingdom in heaven, he will subject them to hell. He will send them into eternal damnation. where there will be constant gnashing of teeth. Is that so? God is a God of love, yes, but he's a God of judgment as well. God is a God of love, but he's a God of judgment. That's why God as man, Jesus Christ, went into the temple. And when he saw that the temple, which was supposed to be a holy place, had been turned into a den of thieves and a place for trading, he took a whip and whipped them. That's a God of love. God is a lion and a lamb. So yes, he's a compassionate God, but he's a God of justice and a God of judgment. And so we do not hate them, we hate the sin. But let's be clear. I mean, this whole God issue, it's a religious issue. This bill has absolutely no religious backbone. This bill is premised, like I said, on Article 39, which is our cultural mandate. And the Constitution, again, says that the custodian of Ghana's customary laws shall be the National House of Chiefs. Apart from holding 18 town hall meetings in my constituency, I held 4 consultative assemblies across the country. The last one was held in the Ashanti region. And I was asked who is sponsoring this. That consultative assembly in the Ashanti region was sponsored by the National House of Chiefs. And the president of the National House of Chiefs, Ojiahowo Nana Yaw JB II, was the special guest of honor. And the National House of Chiefs bore the cost of that consultative assembly. They are the ones who have backed us. And let me just make this point quickly. People say Ghana is a secular state. And so that is a misnomer. Ghana is not a secular state. Ghana is not a secular state. Ghana is a religiously pluralistic state. A secular state is a state like France that has a complete devolvement between the state and the church. You are a country where at every national function, you call a Christian to come and pray to God. You call a Muslim to come and pray to God. You call the traditionalists to come and pour libation to the gods, and you say you are a secular state. God is at the center of every national event we do. A secular state is one that has a complete devolvement between the state and the church, or the state and religion. Religion has no place in the affairs of state. As a country, your national anthem, our national anthem, is a prayer to God. God bless our homeland, Ghana. So how then do you say that we are a secular state? People don't understand the concept of a secular state. France is a secular state. That's a state where there is absolutely nothing religious about the state. Complete dissolution. China is a secular state. America claims to be a secular state, even though they themselves are not a completely secular state. Because you look at their motto, they say, in God we trust. But America's antecedents of coming out of UK and breaking out from the Church of England is the reasons why you have this whole issue of secularism. But Ghana is a religiously pluralistic state. We're a religious nation. We are a nation where at least 88% of our population ascribe to a god or one religion or another. So you cannot say we're a secular state. And so that argument must be laid to rest. The last but true issue I will make is that when people say that homosexuality is not an African, I've asked that people should show me one traditional area in Ghana that supports homosexuality. People have pointed to the Nzulezu area, the Nzima community, and the Nzima Traditional Council has responded and said that people should not make comments that are not correct about their traditional council. And a claim is made by Ademola in his submission that I, on my CNN interview, was asked, where should homosexuals in Ghana go? And I said they should go somewhere else. Me, Sam George, please, let's be honest. That question was never asked, and I never gave that answer. It says that we should focus on issues that will bring development, and that why am I not pushing a bill for employment? Look, I would love to push a bill for employment, for youth employment. I would love to push a bill on infrastructure. But like I said, he needs to familiarize himself with the Ghanaian constitution. Article 108 of the constitution prohibits any member of parliament from introducing any bill in parliament that has financial considerations. So there is no way you can bring a bill on job creation that has no financial consideration for the state, because job creation comes with wages. the state will have to pay wages.
Yeah.
When you say we should bring a bill for more hospitals,
Zoom.
government will have to spend money. And so Article 108, until and unless we are able to change Article 108 of the Constitution, no member of parliament can bring a bill on any of those subjects. You can only bring bills that do not attract costs. And in fact, even if you listen to Akoto Ampao and his colleagues who have brought in a memo against this bill, they actually cite Article 108 and say that because the police will act in the enforcement of this bill, and the police is going to be paid a salary, this bill should not even be accepted by the speaker because it flouts Article 108. But you see, the reason why that argument is mute is that we are not going to employ new policemen for the purposes of the actualization of this bill. You already have a police service that is paid to fight crime, everything that is criminal. And like I said to you, homosexuality is already criminal as per Section 104 of the Criminal Offences Act. So already the police in Ghana, and that is how come the police in Ghana has had case to arrest persons in Ho who were at a homosexual conference. So already this exists, the laws exist. So that argument is moot. But for those who keep saying, why don't you bring this? You need to just listen to my advocacy. Even on the budget, the recent budget that was read 2 days ago, listen to my advocacy on the issues. And then you will know what my position is on those. I wish I could bring a bill on that, but I can't. But thankfully, I can bring a bill on this and I can do it. And let's be clear. If there's anybody, if Mr. Ademola and his LGBTQ friends know any group that is willing to fund the bill, they should please let me know. I have made it clear. I'm expending personal resources. I would not run away from it because there's public education and public sensitization to be done. If you know any group that is willing to support us, let me know. I will reach out to them and publicly take whatever resources they have and account to the people how we use it for public education. We won't run away from it. But so far, like I said, the funding has come from our personal pockets, from religious organizations who align and agree with the bill, and from the National House of Chiefs. Now, the last point I will make is that why do we want, and that's a question he asked in his last slide, why should public opinion supersede the rights to privacy of others? Well, I've established that for you. If you read the Constitution of Ghana, your rights only accrue to you insofar as they respect the rights of the general public. And insofar as they are not a threat to public safety, public health, and public morality. In fact, our Constitution speaks about public morality. That argument could easily be made. Homosexuals, prostitutes. Prostitutes are adults of consenting age, having sex with someone, consensual sex with someone. Why do we criminalize it? Don't they also have dignity? Armed robbers also. Armed robbers also. Right, that's what they want to do. If people want us to begin to give rights on the basis of his feelings, because he feels at the age of 8, he felt that he was not a man. Well, sorry, it is not what you feel. It is what you are. Being male or female is genetic. It's scientific. It's in your DNA. It's in your genes. And that's why no matter how much hormonal treatment you take as a man to make yourself a woman, if I take a blood drop from you and do a genetic sequencing of it, it will show that you have XY in your chromosomes and not XX. And XY means you are a man, XX means you're a woman. This is biological and it is certain and definite. So you cannot say because you wish it. Why? Would I say because I wish it? I should gain. How come when he fled from Nigeria? Why didn't he wish to be British and automatically become British? Or why can't anybody wake up and become trans-financial and say that irrespective of what my bank account is, I feel like I want to use this other person's, because it's feeling. You want us to legalize and legislate on feeling. I mean, that's the level of absurdity that this conversation would drag us. How do you legislate rights that are not determined? Because every day we wake up and there is a new addition to the alphabet. When we lay this bill before Parliament, the full rendition was LGBTQIAAP, meaning lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transgender, transsexuals, queer, questioning, intersex, allies, asexual, and pansexual. And there was a plus. As we speak now, 2J has been added to it, or 2S has been added to it, meaning two spirits. In fact, there are other renditions that have 46 different binary definitions or sexual orientations, 46 and growing. I mean, how then do you pass legislation that has no boundaries? And let's be clear, 30 years ago, when homosexuality was moved away from the list of mental illnesses in the United States and the EU followed suit, it was not a scientific decision. It was a political decision. It was not science that backed that decision. It wasn't the American Association of Psychiatry that took that vote. It was a vote of Congress. Politicians who took a scientific decision to move homosexuality and no longer regard it. But 30 years ago, it was regarded as a mental illness. And so for us, we believe and we hold firm that as I may not be able to come into the House of Commons, and I see we have a member of the House of Commons, the lady from the House of Commons, even though she's of Ghanaian ancestry, cannot rise in the House of Commons and say that she's pushing for the rights of polygamy to be accepted in the United Kingdom, because the UK society frowns on it. The UK society does not accept polygamy. So they criminalize it and send people to jail for it. They criminalize polyandry and send people to jail for it. It is the same way the Ghanaian parliament, which represents the Ghanaian people, can take a decision and say that even a group that is against this bill did their own survey. That survey that said 93% of Ghanaians are against homosexuality. It was not some judge's survey. It was done by the CDD. The CDD is against our bill. But that bill, their own survey showed 93% of Ghanaians are against homosexuality. So we will pass laws to reflect the wishes and aspirations of the Ghanaian people. How many people voted for Brexit in the UK? Less than 55%. But the UK had to go with the decision of that slim majority and exit from the European Union at huge cost to the United Kingdom. You saw what happened with your drivers' unions and petrol, diesel shortages and shortages of groceries in your shops as a result of Brexit. But that is the wish of a slim majority. The UK people, the UK government, and the House of Commons respect it. Now we have a decision of 93% of Ghanaians and counting. I do not see how anybody who comes before equity with clean hands will say that as members of parliament, we should ignore that and kowtow to the aspirations. If anyone has an agenda, you need to listen to the song that has been put out by the San Francisco Gay Men's Choir, where they say they are coming to indoctrinate our children. If you want to practice your homosexuality, practice it in the confines of your room. That is your private business. Do not come and try to change my children. Do not come and try to tell my children that my way of life is wrong and that yours is right. You have no such right. And we will legislate it. And I'm very confident that after this budget hearings and the break of parliament for the Christmas and we come in the new year, we will expedite action, go through all the processes and pass this bill into law before mid-year 2022. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Honorable Sam George. That is very elaborate. We have heard you. We've given you the chance to obviously highlight your views. Bisi, as I promised, I will come back to you in the course of time. In the meantime, I will bring to the audience the next panelist, Bell. Bell is a member of parliament in the UK House of Commons. And Bell will be looking at concerns around the bill from societal norms, human rights, international conventions, or any other perspective that you hold. Bell, please take over.
Thank you. And again, thank you very much for inviting me to speak in this very
Bell, please, can I ask you kindly, I'm sorry, I need to let audience know that we have muted the chat room because there are a lot of abusive words there. So if you see the chat room shut down, we will not take questions from chat room. If you want to raise your hands, be prepared to show your face. Otherwise, we will not call you. Thank you, Bell. My apologies. Please continue.
Thank you. No, that's absolutely fine. As you've already said, I'm a British politician. I make no apologies for that. But I'm also a proud daughter of Ghana, and I maintain my citizenship. other than my unwavering commitment to human rights of all people and the pride that I have in my Ghanaian heritage, these are just two of the things that leave me deeply concerned about what this bill will do to fellow people of Ghanaian heritage and people of who may visit Ghana. But it also really concerns me what it's going to do to Ghana's international standing within the world. Now, quite frankly, you've heard other views, but it's my view, and not just my view, that the bill really does empower the abuse and the infringement of both the constitutional rights and the human rights of other Ghanaians. And whilst direct references have been made to the Constitution by the Honourable Sam George, he will be aware, as others will be, that Ghana is a significant player on the international scene in regards to human rights. It's also a signatory to major international human rights instruments, and these include the rights of LGBTQ people. So regardless of whatever else is said, these are things that successive Ghanaian governments have signed, and I'm sure nobody would want to imply that Ghanaian governments sign things and do not hold true to them, or that they would be happy to conflict with any international agreements that they have made. And some of the language that I've heard today is not the Ghana that I know. It's not the Ghana that I boast about, and it's not the Ghana that people right across the world want to visit. Ghana, as far as I know, has always had a culture of inclusivity and diversity and acceptance where people come and feel free. Now, I've heard many arguments about Western or international interference, and I would put this to you all. We are here at a Ghana Union debate. The Ghana Union, it may be people of Ghanaian heritage, but it is a diaspora organization. We are resident here in the UK. We are subject to other laws, and we accept this, and we understand and accept that we are members of an international community, as do legislators in Ghana and businesses and every such thing. They understand that we are part of an international community, and the idea that we can operate outside of this international community solely is quite frankly unbelievable. And the key moral arguments, I think Bisi laid out quite clearly, is that there are people around the world who are facing violence and inequality, torture, and even execution just because of who they love, who they choose to have sexual relations with, how they look, as this happens to us in the UK, Black people in the UK, or who they are. And both sexual orientation and gender identity are key aspects of this, and they should never lead to the discrimination of anybody. Now, we have talked quite a bit, and we've heard quite a bit about Ghanaian culture and family values, and I personally don't recognise discrimination in any of those values. Quite frankly, the way that Ghana is looked at across the world, others do not necessarily recognise discrimination in any of those values. No one claims that Ghana and Ghanaians are perfect, but that's not what people see when they look at Ghana. And this bill, quite frankly, rather than claiming to protect family values, it is calling from the destruction of family relationships. What it's saying is calling on LGBT people, the parents and the family members of LGBT people, to rise up against them, inciting people to even hate their own children because of their sexual preferences. And I don't see how that is supportive of family values, supportive of that acceptance you're meant to have in a family unit. And I think we need to understand just how much, as a diaspora, this type of bill impacts us. Now, just as many as you may have, I began watching the hearings, and I've seen many different academics rise up and speak against the bill and do it quite clearly. And I was really, really concerned to hear Honourable Sam George's reflection on about it being about public health and public interest. Perhaps the most problematic of this is the references to HIV. Now, there's been a lot of work done over the years to remove the stigma that there is around HIV. And the argument, to continue pushing the argument that HIV is spread most widely by homosexual sex is not helpful to the tackling of HIV. In fact, instances where HIV is spread has got a lot to do with ignorance. It's a lot to do with ignorance and incorrect sexual health. And that's pure and simple. And this type of ignorance actually is the reason for the prevalence of HIV, because you have people believing that they're only going to catch it if they're having a homosexual relationship. That makes absolutely no sense. There are many, many instances in Ghana and across Africa, across other countries in the world where HIV is spread in heterosexual relationships. And there are people who claim that ignorance and continue to have unprotected sex, and this is how it's spreading, and it's killing people. And so that is a lack, I think, as far as I'm concerned, of clear education when it comes to sexual education. And people need to be very, very careful when they throw out these words in order to create stigma amongst people, but also when they use it in a sphere such as this, because it creates issues where people are not well informed and not well educated and continue to spread this particular virus. And I have to ask, is what people do in the privacy of their own rooms in a consensual manner really the major concerns facing Ghana today? It'd been touched on before. There are other issues. There are issues of healthcare. There are issues of education. There are issues of economic standing. There are issues of so many different issues. And I have to ask, whilst people may have their individual preferences and prejudices and why they may not want to see this or may not want to talk about it, in terms of how it impacts Ghanaians, is this really the most important thing? I think about how much legislative time this bill is taken up and it will be taking up over the course of the next few months. And with all of the other issues there are, not just affecting Ghana, and many issues post-pandemic affecting so many different countries, is a bill like this really the best use of your legislators' time? Now, in the year of return and everything since, we heard the president of Ghana call out to people from the diaspora, from the African diaspora all across the world, and say that Ghana is open. And we saw that calling Ghana open and all of the things that were done to make Ghana open and a welcome place for people to be able to come and travel and revisit Africa in that way was of a major boost to the Ghana economy to the tune of billions, quite literally billions. Why would we want to shut that down? Why would we want to expose Ghana to this kind of international scrutiny that would actually prevent people from coming into the country? Now, I don't understand why the state would want to regulate issues of sex between consenting adults. And I'm thinking about it, the way the law is passed, it's not just impacting Ghanaians, as I said, it's impacting people that visit the country. It's impacting people that visit the country. Again, they're not coming to do anything to anybody, quite realistically. The state is there to protect children, to protect people who are weak, to protect people who are vulnerable. So if there was an issue where it wasn't consensual, absolutely, I think the state should take action. But when it is, what interest does the state have in doing this? And how does this benefit Ghanaians overall? I simply cannot see the benefits, but I can see a lot of the negatives, and I'll go through some of them now, particularly financially. And I can tell you that this bill in itself has repercussions on the interim trade agreement that you have with the UK following Brexit. We won't be the only country that does this in terms of, or has these kind of clauses within our trade agreements. And that's something that I do not believe that Ghana can afford. But whilst I mentioned Brexit, I would say that the poll that has been taken and that has decided to drive these figures that you've put out about what Ghanaians think about the issue is not too far off what happened with Brexit. The Brexit vote was a referendum vote. We don't actually run the country by referendum. If the government had wanted to reject the referendum, they would have done so, but they didn't, because they thought it was a popular position. And as you see, and as you quite rightfully mentioned, this so-called popular position has not done well for our country. Now, as Ghana is recovering from the economic damage caused by the pandemic, like everybody is all across the world, this type of legislation is really going to put unnecessary pressure on finances, the stability of the exchange rate and the growth of development, as well as threats to broader market access. And I know it could quite easily lower the amount of people that are willing to participate in the finance of Ghana and invest in Ghana. Fewer multinationals choosing to invest in Ghana. Is that something that we would be willing to risk simply because the law conflicts with their corporate or corporate culture or anything such as that? Again, how does this bill benefit Ghana? How does it benefit Ghanaians? Now, it can even go as far as to affect how aid is flowing into the country. And I think that's really problematic, given the situation that we know that some people in the country find themselves in. Now, if you continue to marginalize any groups and alienize stakeholders, you create this really dangerous situation. And again, I just cannot understand why we'd want to put ourselves in that situation. But people seem so willing to do it. I even heard something which, quite frankly, really embarrassed me. I heard that there was a member of parliament in Ghana who threatened to beat the Australian, who said they would beat the Australian High Commissioner. Now, as a Black person living in the UK, as somebody of Ghanaian heritage, when you hear a Ghanaian saying something like that, it would make you feel quite embarrassed. I don't care what it is that the Australian individual said, as long as it wasn't anything that was particularly harmful or threatening. But for us to on a global stage threaten the ambassadors or the commissioners of other countries is actually quite embarrassing globally. What does it say about us as a people? We know that, and we've seen it already in the chat today, the horrible things that people say about us as Black people, and to say something which is quite barbaric is very embarrassing. Of course, people have issues with what they call interference in Ghanaian affairs. But the reality is, what exactly do you think that the high commissions and the ambassadors are in Ghana for? Yet they're not just in Ghana to issue visas for Ghanaians to enter into other countries. They're there to protect their own interests, and these interests include their values. So if they speak out about their values, the idea that they would be attacked, especially when they're not imposing them, they're just reiterating them, and they have done that on a number of different occasions, on a number of different issues over years and years. The idea that you would threaten to say something, to do something to them, it is quite awful. And the idea that you would speak up against them when they're just explaining, again, what their values are or practicing those particular values, I think is wrong, because you have to remember that they are there to represent their citizens, and they've been given the diplomatic right to do so, and they should be treated with the respect that they deserve, in the same way that I know in other countries Ghanaians will be treated with that respect. And if we demand that respect when we go to other places, we should be willing to give that to people who are in Ghana, quite frankly. Now, I think that it's very worrying that at times when this is being discussed, and we've heard this already, talking about how there's no issue with rights of LGBT people in Ghana. And I've met with LGBT campaigns in Ghana. I've met with various international NGOs that have looked at this issue. And I can tell you that the idea that people that are LGBTQ in Ghana are not being discriminated against is completely wrong. You only need look up some of the most horrible things. And there are videos. There are videos, there are many articles. There's so much information where people are treated horribly. They're treated horribly, they're beaten, they're abused, and I've seen this evidence. So it really surprises me that in supposedly legislators in Ghana have seen no evidence of any sort of discrimination. And people quite quickly are looking to the idea of the legalization of gay marriage. And I can tell you from having spoken to the campaign in Ghana and others, no one's talking about legalizing gay marriage. At the moment, people are just asking to be able to live freely and to not to be beaten up just because of who they are. And I think, quite frankly, that's a very small ask. Now, I know that there is a particular clause in the bill that claims that it will protect LGBTQ people because it's criminalizing attacking them. But really, is that really necessary? Because Ghana already has criminal codes which actually protect citizens from such attack. So the idea that you'd bring this in as this particular clause in and make it look as if it's being LGBTQ friendly is actually quite unnecessary in the context of the bill, and doesn't detract from what the bill is overall. And in this part of the argument, I'd really like to address the issue of what is popular. Now, yes, we're talking about Ghana, and I want to make clear that no one's detracting from the fact that you're talking about what happens in Ghana and what Ghanaians would like as legislation. But I can tell you that from my experience, for example, in this country, if you were to ask people about the death penalty and whether we should bring back the death penalty for certain acts, I guarantee you that we would have an overwhelming majority to bring back the death penalty. But would we do that as legislators? No. And there's very, very clear reasons for that. And also there are some parts of the UK and some groups in the UK that don't like Black people. There are people who are racist. There are people who are racist right across the world, unfortunately, but we still have issues of racism in the UK. Now imagine if somebody was to come and say, actually, we've done this poll and we've found out that the majority of people in the UK, and I speak to people as people from the Ghanaian Union in the UK, that if we found, oh, we've done this quick poll and people are saying that they don't want to see people in this country. People are specifically saying they don't want to see Ghanaians in this country. There's far too many of them. Let's remove them all. Would we not argue against that? Or would you expect somebody like myself to say, well, a poll was taken of my constituents and they said they want to see you gone. So goodbye, everybody. If you are Black, if you are Ghanaian, if you are African, no one wants to see you here. You should quickly go. Of course not, because that is absolutely ridiculous. The idea that something is popular should not be a reason to make it legislation. There are very, very key reasons for that. We have responsibilities as legislators to make sure that minority groups are protected. Now, I would be completely, it would be completely remiss of me if I didn't clearly state again that I'm a Christian. I believe that Jesus Christ is my Lord and personal Savior. He's the author and finisher of my faith. And I know that Jesus gave 2 commandments, and those 2 commandments that we must love God and that we must love one another. And I don't see how I could possibly be loving somebody else at the same time as discriminating against them, at the same time as calling for a bill like this to be put on their heads. Now, it's John 3:16 and 17 very clearly saying that God so loved the world that he gave his only son so that whoever believes in him shall not perish. Whoever. It doesn't specify what type of person it says. It says whoever. And it also says, for God did not send his son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. If we're going to go back through the morality of the Old Testament, I would also ask, where is the legislation for an eye for an eye? Where is the legislation for chopping off people's hands? And, you know, where is the legislation against all of these things that we perhaps might have seen in the Old Testament? And if we're talking about maintaining culture, I'm sorry to be crude about this, but I'm waiting for the legislation that says, for example, since we're talking about what people do with their genitalia, in Ghana, it's customary for men to be circumcised. When we have our, when COVID is over and all of those booths are eventually taken, are we going to have legislation now that asks when men come into the country, if they're coming to live amongst us, for them to be circumcised at the border? No, because it's absolutely ridiculous. And where to, if we're talking about morality, is there going to be the legislation that stops men cheating on their wives or wives cheating on their husbands? Because that is also against morality, isn't it? To have extramarital relationships, but we don't see this legislation anywhere. So I question again, what is the benefit to Ghanaians of interfering in what people do personally? There is no public health interest because what's being said about HIV, etc., as far as I'm concerned, a lot of it is based on issues of a lack of sexual education and the public interest. How does it benefit the public if such a bill will weaken Ghana's economy, will weaken Ghana's standing within the international community, and will ultimately create a situation where Ghana becomes a pariah from being much beloved in Africa, much beloved amongst the world. Now, I would say if you have issues with people being LGBTQ, you have issues with homosexuality, then there's only one thing that you need to do, is that if you are a man, do not have sex with a man. And if you're a woman, do not have sex with a woman, and leave everybody else to do what it is that they want to do. As long as somebody is not harming you, these issues make no sense. And in terms of the judgment that people want to place upon them, again, I say that as a Christian, Jesus, as far as I'm concerned, is a compassionate Lord. And I, like everybody else in this call, is a sinner. I'm not worthy of that salvation, but I know that I'm going to get it. So who on earth am I to judge others and say that God would not give that salvation to somebody else? I have to end by saying that, yes, if we're talking about what is judgment, you've got to leave that judgment to God, because there are no gods on this call, least of all myself or the other honourable member of Parliament. And by passing a bill like this, all we do is damage Ghana in the eyes of the international community. And this may be an international community that will never forgive us. So I have to ask you, is it worth it? And I have to say, me for one, I don't want to see Ghana go this way. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Honorable Bell. Thank you. You've clearly highlighted your views, your opinions, your concerns, your aspirations for Ghana as a Ghanaian, and I'm sure others too will come and join in many ways, either for or whatever. As I said earlier, today is not about debate. It's not an argument. We are debating the issue. Everyone's view is equally important. Most of you will know by this time in most of our program we'll be rounding up, but obviously the key part of the matter is that today the topic is very heavy and everyone here is very interested. So I'm going to beg all my audience to bear with me that we may have to do an extended version where you have the opportunity to ask your questions. And I will beg my panelists, please. I know I asked for 2 hours. If you can spare some time with us, please do, because all the hands up are waiting to be called. And I will now call on Her Royal Highness Nachicho Soyo, one of the people that are supposed to be holding our traditions and customs, but also a learned person that also believes in human rights and other advocacy initiatives. So I believe she'll have a lot to share with us. Now, please take over from us. And from
Thank
now,
you,
we're going to Dr. Tete to round up to Q&A. Thank you so much. Now, please.
Thank you, Emmanuel. And once again, greetings to my fellow panelists. And thank you for inviting me to participate in this debate. I want to particularly greet Honorable Sam George, a man of many contradictions. And before I go on, I want to issue a disclaimer.
What's up? Right. Have we lost? We seem to have lost Her Royal Highness. You put me on Zoom.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I think you're back now. Yes, thank you.
I don't know what's happened. Before I carry on, I want to issue a bit of a disclaimer. As a custodian of my culture, I am not here to promote LGBTQ activities. Note, I didn't say rights, I said activities, but neither am I here to condemn people who identify as such. And I have to say, it's actually quite difficult to treat such a sensitive topic without a level of vulgarity. So if I appear to use certain words, please bear with me. And I'll be careful to be sensitive to the sensibilities of my Ghanaian people throughout. I understand that many people feel, many Ghanaians, as if we're to believe Honorable Sam George, feel an aversion to the idea, the very idea of LGBTQ, and want nothing to do with it. And as Honorable Bell Ribeiro said, in essence, that's their right to not want to engage with anything of the sort. A person has a right to decide who and what they wish to engage with, but an aversion to something, an aversion to a thing, does not automatically make that thing criminal. And that is where we need to make a clear distinction. The fact that something offends your sensibilities does not make that thing criminal automatically. And Honorable Bell raised the question, who are we to judge? So I'd like to, first of all, say, and I'm talking as a traditional ruler, so most people expect me to come in all guns blazing and firing off as this being against my culture. So I'm going to delve in the culture in a while. But first of all, I find the bill very heavy on populism, or the proposed bill is very heavy on populism and the moral high ground. And it's also, you know, but I also find it's very weak on coherent argument and also a tad lazy, I must say. In its current form, passing the bill could, in the long term, criminalize almost the entire Ghanaian population, including Honorable Sam George and his cheerleaders. And that worries me, because I might find that something I say, even by virtue of speaking common sense into this debate, I might become what is classed as an ally, and I may be criminalized. And before I go on, I have to say, Honorable Sam George, it is unfortunate equating LGBTQ to armed robbery is a lazy argument. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make any sense. And I also have to say that prostitution is a contractual sexual interaction, not necessarily a consenting one. It's a contractual sexual interaction. So I'll move on. One of the fundamental rights and principles of any human rights legislation is the right not to be discriminated against. A person's choice, therefore, of how they experience sexual pleasure, and I spoke about vulgarity, so bear with me here, with another consenting individual or consenting adult, with emphasis on consenting, where no harm has been caused to either party or to anyone else, cannot be criminalized. Not unless you wish to argue that the sole purpose of sexual intercourse is procreation. And I have 2 children, and I can assure you that is not the case. The proposed bill fails to separate willful cause of harm to another person or criminality from choice and consent. Even more worrying, the entire bill's proposal is based on what Honorable Sam George considers to be the cultural and religious values of Ghana and her people. Let me focus on the cultural for the moment, because I am, in fact, a traditional ruler. On the first page of the proposal bill, an excerpt from the statement from the National House of Chiefs is quoted, which emphatically states, the House wants to state without equivocation that throughout history, nowhere does the Ghanaian culture subscribe to LGBTQ, which is taboo, inhuman, and alien to our society. In God's wisdom, man and woman were created to fulfill the procreation of humans on earth to satisfy God's will. The symbolism for sex and marriage was between man and woman. And as such, the idea of man marrying man and woman marrying woman is an abomination to our tradition and culture as Ghanaians. Now, I am part of that traditional institution, but I can equally say without equivocation that my esteemed fellow traditional rulers in the National House of Chiefs are completely wrong on this one. In fact, there is ample empirical evidence to support the existence of same-sex marriage, same-sex sexual intercourse in Ghanaian society long before colonialism. And I was equally shocked when I researched and found this to be a fact. Being sensitive to the sensibilities of my people, however, I would refrain from naming the specific tribes where this was not only practiced openly, but accepted as a normal part of everyday life. And if you're curious and you doubt what I'm saying, I would encourage you to read a book called Boy, Wives, and Female Husbands by Stephen O. Murray and Will Roscoe. And there is another one, a study by Hutchinson in 1861, pages 129 and 130, which talks about what used to happen in the 19th century in a very prominent part of prominent tribe in Ghana, which practiced, male sexual relationships. Religion will also use the Bible and Quran as primary sources for their call to criminalize what religion considers actions against the religious morality of the people and the imposition of what they term an alien culture on Ghanaians. So having dispelled the cultural myth surrounding this debate by pointing you to the empirical evidence, I would like to point out that by that very definition, Christianity and Islam are both alien cultures. But here we are, we have, as a people, embraced them wholeheartedly. And we're now using that alien culture to propose the expansion of a law, which is the 1960s Act. Don't forget that act was passed by the colonialists, the British who were with us at the time. We're using an alien culture passed by what we would consider aliens to argue or expand a law to criminalize what we consider to be an alien culture. Now, tell me how that doesn't sound absurd within the context of this debate. So, and also pardon me for being a little confused. If I remember correctly, and I think it has been mentioned, people like Hitler used religion and, I suppose, offense to moral sensibilities as a basis to murder 17 million human beings. And those human beings included Black people, pygmies, as I suppose they were called, and homosexuals. So much as Mr. Sam George will try and trivialize that, 17 million people died because someone thought they were doing God's work. Someone thought 17 million people got murdered. So you commit murder in the name of God and claim you're doing God's work. It doesn't make any sense to me. And we have embraced many so-called alien cultures, including Christianity. And when you go to our courts, you see our judges in those ridiculous looking wigs. And then most of us in the hot sunshine in Ghana put on a three-piece suit to go to work so we look gentlemanly or ladylike. And so when we talk about alien culture being imported into Ghanaian culture, we have to be very careful, because where do we draw the line? And if any of us on this panel, while we're talking about religion, if any of us on this panel can confidently claim that we are without sin, then I propose that person should cast the first stone. Now, coming to the legislation, Section 104 of the Criminal Offences Act of 1960, which Honorable Sam George spoke at length about, is also a colonial law, as I said before, because the British actually passed that law in response to what they found in Africa when they arrived, interestingly enough. And if you doubt me, do your research. And this law defines unnatural carnal knowledge as sexual intercourse with a person in an unnatural manner or with an animal. So apart from homosexuality and lesbianism, how else may we define unnatural carnal knowledge? If you're a heterosexual couple, and I'm asking this of Honorable Sam George, if you're a heterosexual couple, for instance, and with all due respect to the sensibilities of everybody watching and listening, you both, the couple, enjoy carnal knowledge, anal sex, I'm sorry to say, would you be considered criminals? Because of course, by his definition, that is unnatural carnal knowledge. Or is it the case that by virtue of being heterosexual, it is no longer unnatural carnal knowledge. What about adventurous couples who may want to invite a third individual into their sexual experience, bearing in mind that their right to enjoy sexual experiences how they want within the confines of their home is their right. If they choose to invite a third individual, knowing that in a three-way interaction, two of the persons within that interaction would have to be necessarily of the same sex, would that heterosexual couple become criminals as a result for promoting, for engaging in, and for being an ally? And then what about unmarried ladies who may not want to engage with humans, but decide that, these days we live in an age where if you are aware as I am, there may be some toys that individuals may choose to use. Would we criminalize that individual for using the toy because for their sexual pleasure, because it's a natural carnal knowledge? And these are the arguments that we need to look at very carefully when we begin to expand criminality. Honorable Sam George has said that homosexuality is already a criminal offense. Yes, it is, by virtue of the 1960s Act. But like I said, this was brought in by the British in response to what they thought they found on the continent when they arrived. And I believe that the law must change, but not in the way that Honorable Sam George is proposing. I, as a traditional ruler, has to look at humanity in its human form. And I have to ask my conscience, am I to say, by virtue of what the masses are shouting, by virtue of the frenzy that has been whipped up, and the calls for criminalization of a person, I must also, to be popular, jump on that bandwagon and want people to be criminalized and made criminals simply because they choose a way to the way they want to enjoy sexual pleasure. So the letter and the spirit of the proposed bill seeks to deliberately obliterate the line between conduct that causes harm. And Honorable Sam George demonstrated that when he equated armed robbery to homosexuality. And conduct that causes harm, such as armed robbery and sexual abuse, and then human choice. He's seeking to remove the lines between the two. So as far as Honorable Sam George and his supporters are concerned, if you're homosexual, you're automatically someone who will cause harm to another person. And he's smart enough to know that that's not true. The bill deliberately equates choice with abuse and criminal behavior. And I propose that a heterosexual is equally as capable of sexually molesting children or even adults as a person identifying as LGBTQ. If a gay person or an LGBTQ person goes to molest a child, that person has caused harm to another person and their actions are subject to the law. They have caused harm. But the fact of being gay or LGBTQ does not automatically make them a criminal or someone who would cause harm to somebody. We have plenty of evidence in Ghana where heterosexuals are abusing little kids. We only have to look in our classrooms. I can give you personal examples of little kids that have been molested by heterosexual adults who are men. And so when you begin to equate a person's choice to what is tantamount to criminal behavior and abuse of another person and harm to another person, your argument lacks merit and intelligence. And the protection of children must be against bad actions and not a person's consenting choice. And by prohibiting anyone who identifies as such from being allowed to even adopt children under the guise of protecting children within section 17 and 18 of the proposed bill, you automatically assume that the child may be harmed if adopted by same-sex couples. And for me, that's unfortunate. If this bill was about defending society against bad people who harm or abuse children or adults, I will be the first person in line signing on the dotted line for it, because I have a responsibility. And as the chairman said, I am a strong advocate for women's rights and for children's rights. So I will be the first person supporting the bill wholeheartedly. But it isn't. It isn't. It's using dubious arguments to target people who may otherwise be good citizens of our nation, going on about their business, and anyone who would plead for proper consideration may be classed as an ally or an advocate and criminalized under the proposed bill, myself included. The very fact that I'm speaking as a traditional ruler and saying, let's look at this from a human rights perspective, let's look at this from a human perspective, makes me automatically a potential criminal under the proposed bill, because I become an advocate by Honorable Sam George's definition, or by the definition of anyone who chooses to infer from my words that I'm supporting LGBTQ rights. And so we need to be careful. If we are not careful, sooner or later, what heterosexuals do, when you see someone beating and Honorable Sam George and his supporters may argue that the bill also confers protection on people who identify as such. But if you see someone, you know, and being abused or being beaten up for identifying as gay or lesbian or LGBTQ, and you try to speak for them, if someone is minded to, they may interpret your speech for them as being a proponent of LGBTQ, and they may report you as being an ally, and they may report you as being a supporter, and you may find yourself a criminal. Secondly, as heterosexuals, if you happen to have a very nosy neighbor who decided to look through your window and find you engaging in something that he or she has an aversion to, and determines that that thing is so abhorrent to them, that they're going to report you to the authorities as engaging in unnatural carnal knowledge, be careful. What you wish for, you might just get, and you may become a criminal. So when we engage in this debate, let's look at it not from a perspective of populism and dubious arguments, but from the perspective of humanity. In my culture as a Ga, we have a saying that says, "Ablekuma abakumawo." That is the concept of hospitality within the Ghanaian culture that I have come to understand. And while you may not like someone's way of life, you have a right not to engage with them, but you don't have a right to criminalize them and incite others to target them. Having said all this, I want to address the LGBTQ community also. Now, when you go into advocacy in a person's country, what you need to be aware of is to be aware of the sensibilities of that country. Ghana may be taking its time to engage with certain lifestyles or certain, matters which maybe have become common in other nations. When you come in, be sensitive to that. Take your time and allow the people to think through, to understand before engaging. When you go into someone's culture and you go in gung-ho and you want to insist that the person accept your point of view, what it creates is the very thing you want to avoid, which is resentment. And so I plead on with my brothers and sisters within the LGBTQ community to also bear that in mind and be sensitive. Ghanaians are not bad people. Ghanaians are not mad people. Ghanaians are hospitable people. But maybe we don't have the level of understanding that others have. So give us time to be able to arrive at the point where we would look at this from my perspective, which is the human and the holistic perspective. And thank you very much.
Embedded the two aspects of your views and beliefs and opinions. Thank you. We will now have our last panelist for the next 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll go to Q&A. I'm determined to have this finished hopefully by 10 o'clock. I have come to realize that this topic is not a one-off topic because there are huge interests here. And hopefully my audience and my panelists will be happy to be reassembled sometime in the new year, January, so we can go again over the issues again, because I don't think it's a one-off topic. But before we get to that stage, let me call on the Reverend Dr. Canon Lawrence Tete. If he's around, I know he had challenges with network. So if we have Dr. Tete, please take over and give us your views on the issue before we open the lines for Q&A. Right. Do we have Dr. Tete with us from the technical team? If not, then we'll move straight to the Q&A so that we don't take too much more time. We'll put him back once we find him. Right, okay. I think it would be fair to say we have lost Dr. Tete through no fault of his, but for technical or network issues. Right. This program is brought to you by Ghana Union, the Western Region Nurses Association, the Ghana Nurses Association, the Nightingale Nurses Association, Ghana Union Harlow, who is also a partner group, all the other Ghanaian organizations affiliated to Ghana Union, bringing this to you as a diaspora conversation, not an argument. We all have a stake in Ghana. We have family members, we have mothers, aunties, uncles, brothers who belong to us. And it is right. Somebody asked me, Mr. Kwesi, why are you getting yourself into this conversation? I said, because our family there. And I also go to Ghana as well. So I must have a reason to debate it, at least, if anything at all, have my views aired. At this point, we'll open the lines. As I said earlier, please, we've had a lot of abuse on the chat room, so I'm not reading any chat room question. On those who have raised your hands, if I call you and you can't show your face, we will take you out and we'll move to the next person. Kindly saying so, not with the humility, not being rude, but we have to know who we are talking to if you really want to ask a genuine question. So I will call on Marie, your hand was up, please. Marie.
Yes, Mr. Kwesi, can you hear me? Good evening, everybody.
I can, thank you.
Fantastic, good evening. Thanks for the opportunity. Mine is not a question. First of all, let me say congratulations to all our speakers. Everybody has spoken well, and there's a lot to really go back and think about and reconsider. However, mine is a very brief contribution to Honorable Sam George. I think sometimes the way you convey the message seems quite aggressive. And I believe the Honorable MP for Streatham Bell touched on this as well, somewhere along the line. We cannot fight LGBT. Nobody can ever fight homosexuality. So personally, I think the language, the vocabulary, the choice of words that we're using whilst putting across our argument needs to change. Yes, I know you're very passionate about this topic. You've put in a lot of work. And obviously Ghana being a sovereign country has taken a stand. You're speaking on the side of the majority of the population off the back of the CDD polls and all that. However, that still does not give us the right to treat people anyhow, speak to people anyhow. The banter between you and the pro-LGBT gentleman from Nigeria who was on, in my opinion, was uncalled for. So to sum it all up, please, Sam George, reconsider the way you're approaching this matter. It is coming across very aggressive. It's already played out on social media between yourself and another member of parliament from EU Parliament also, etc. It is just not proper. So please, 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 we applaud you as Ghanaians for the good work that you've put into this thing. We pray that you're able to see it through to the end, but you must pause at some point and listen. You need to develop a character of listening, active listening. Listen to what the people are saying, because just like Mr. Quayson said, we all have a stake in this matter in the good interest of the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you. That's a good contribution. Can we highlight all the speakers, please? So at least if they want to attend to something, at least I will see if they want to attend to any direct contribution or question. Thank you. Moses Yawunu, please. Moses.
Yeah. Hi. Good evening, panel. Good evening, everybody. I really, really appreciate the way the panel members handled the discussion. In fact, they came out very well. I did a lot of work, a lot of research, okay, before coming on this program. But I knew that I wouldn't have the same time like the panelists. And so as they were speaking, I was kind of canceling out a few things. But I have one big concern. The bill, Mr. Honorable Sam George, your bill, I think in order to make things brief, I will be rather direct to the point. Your bill actually creates a very, very hostile atmosphere for people who are homosexuals in Ghana. They were homosexuals 1,000 years ago. Ghana has had homosexuals 300 years ago, and they will have homosexuals 1,000 years after you die or me die. So don't think that you are going to change Ghana, and that would be a very, very arrogant approach. I'm sorry to use the language I'm using. I have, in the United Kingdom, worked with HIV and LGBT people for 29 years. So that's starting from 1992. So I've come to know that community very, very well. And your description, the kind of image you are painting of the, in fact, I don't even like to call them LGBT. I just like to say the homosexual community. And I spoke to a Ghanaian doctor yesterday, and because he is somebody I know, he has stayed with me before, and I was asking him a few questions. He is a reverend minister in addition to being a gynecologist, and I asked him a few questions. In terms of records, people who go to our hospital, people who are born in our hospitals across Ghana, there are those with what we call mixed sex. Now, sometimes, at the time of birth, the doctor says, oh, you are a girl, okay? Because the doctors make that decision there and then. When the girl gets to 19 years, she said, where are my breasts? I'm supposed to be a girl. Where are my breasts? They are not there.
Can you just tell us exactly what you are saying or contributing, because we've got so many people waiting. I don't want synopsis.
Okay, I'll try and cut it short because I can see that there. All I want to say is that please, Mr. Honorable George, please step back. You are dealing with human lives. And there are people who, without any fault of theirs, particularly children, I'll give you an example. I'm an example. I was sexually abused from the age of 7 to 10. I was seriously sexually abused. And it was only when I was 42 years old that I was able, I got what happened. It took almost for 2 weeks, I nearly had a breakdown, okay? But there are people whose conditions are far worse. I was only lucky, very, very lucky that I wasn't abused by a man, it was a woman. So to a degree, I was lucky. It could have been far more disastrous. you have to know that there are a large number of Ghanaian children who have become adults, who because of abuse get confused with even their sexuality. All these things, in terms of when you are driving this bill, what I expected you to do was to do a national kind of research. Gather all the people, including the people you describe as, or who describe themselves as LGBT. Gather as much information from them so that you can get a proper balanced view before you start what I call this bill. Because I can tell you, there is a lot in Ghana that Mr. Sam George, you have closed your eyes to, or you don't want to know, or you don't know about at all. So please, go back and do your homework again. Get the Ghanaian community. What you have done is to kind of create an atmosphere, a very hostile atmosphere. And the 74, there's 87% Christians. I think 75 or 87% Christians in Ghana. The Muslims are 11%. The others are about 5%. So of course, the Christian community's view is heavy. It's absolutely heavy. And you go to Parliament or you go to the Supreme Court, the Christians dominate. All the best schools in Ghana, whether Achimota or Infancy Pimo, are dominated by
Mr. Yawuno, I think, Mr. Yanu, I think you've made your point. Thank you very much. Sam George will take note and respond in due course. Let me take two more, and then we'll go back to those who want to react to the issues that has been raised by our audience. Can I call on Kofi Emisa, please? Kofi Emisa, please. You must show your face, please, if you are asking a question. Do we have Kofi Emisa with us? Kofi Emisa.
Yes, I'm here. Mr. Kwesin, I'm so sorry. If you can forgive me, I can't show my face at the moment because of where I am. But if that is a barrier, I would agree and I will not speak.
Fortunately, I think I know you, so
yeah.
It's fine.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to veer into the area of when we come to this issue and religion. I'm sure Honorable Sam George made it clear that the bill is not about religion. And I think that as much as we all agree that historically, religion has been used to do a lot of damage, I think that we should look beyond religion and see this bill as something that the nation is grappling with. And we need to allow the nation to grapple with it and come to a decision, a point where we all agree this is where we should go. When people try to ask the question, why are we comparing homosexuals with armed robbers and all those kind of things? What we also need to remember is that when they are also arguing, they argue that why are we living all those other things that we call sin? And then we are criminalizing homosexuality. So there should be that balance. And when people quote the Bible to say that if you are not sinful, cast the first stone, we should ask ourselves that, do the people that support LGBTQI+ agree that it's a sin? If they do, then we can argue on that basis. But because they don't, please, let us not argue that way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kofi, thank you. I will give way for the panelists, most especially, I think, Honorable Sam George, to attend to some of the concerns raised. But before I do, I would like to go and ask a question from the bill itself. Section 20, access to medical help or treatment by accused. A person who, upon arrest, during police investigations, upon arraignment before court, in the course of trial, or at any time during incarceration, for the commission of an offense under the Act, recants and makes a voluntary request to access and approve medical help or an approved medical treatment shall be granted access to the approved medical help or approved medical treatments. Section 2 of that says the cost for an approved medical help or medical treatment under Section 1, which I read earlier, shall be borne by the person or any other person, including an approved service provider, on behalf of the person. Now, the question is, Honorable Samjo, what if the person doesn't have a means to bear the cost and doesn't have anyone to come to their aid to bear that cost? What will happen to that person?
Thank you very much, Mr. Quayson. There've been
this one and any other ones in brief, so that we can take.
There've been quite a number of issues raised directly directed at me. I'll try to take all of them, starting with yours. If you read the 2, it says that the cost for an approved medical help or medical treatment under subsection 1 shall be borne by the person or any other person. And then it goes ahead to say that any other person could include an approved service provider on behalf of the person. Now, the reason why we did this, and this will also answer questions that Mr. Moses Nyauno asked or suggested that we didn't do consultation. The amount of consultation that went into this, persons actively engaged in homosexuality, persons who have come out of homosexuality, we engaged over 40 of these persons, both practicing homosexuals and former homosexuals, in the course of putting together this bill. And so a lot of research did go into this. I just need to state that for the records. But in the course of that, you realize that there are persons and associations that have indicated their willingness when this bill becomes law to apply to the Health and Health Facilities Regulatory Authority to become approved service providers. And some of these approved service providers have funding that they would use to support persons who willingly, voluntarily ask to undergo approved medical care. So even if the person doesn't have the care, there are service providers who are willing. And if you read it, that's why we included it, saying including an approved service provider. So there's always, that's been factored in. They will get that support from an approved service provider. Now, I'm grateful that Mr. Emisa made the point, because a lot of the points that were made by my colleague, the lady from my colleague, member of parliament, the lady member of parliament, pointed to religion. Religion has nothing to do with this bill. I've made that clear. However, there are always places where, there are always times when you have a synergy between religious beliefs and legislation. Where you have the synergy, so be it. But on this bill, I have made it clear, when you read the memo to the bill, in there nowhere do we make any religious references or inferences. It's based on the cultural heritage of Ghana, Article 39 of the Constitution. Now, the suggestion that, and Moses raised that issue, again, I keep saying this, that people need to read the bill and appreciate it. We criminalize acts in Section 6 of the bill. What he referenced was intersex persons. So when he said the person could be born with 2 genitalia, and maybe the doctor could determine wrongly at birth that this is a male when the person is a female. Well, science has proven that that can always be determined at birth. I made that point in my earlier submission. You can always tell based on genetic sequencing, does the person have the XY chromosome or the XX chromosome? It's possible for the person to have the XY, and instead of being a man, is developing a breast or came with a vagina, or have the XX and come with a penis. But however, when you read Section 6, where we list all the acts that are criminal, I'm going to just read. When you read Section 6, at least 6E, for example, 6(1)E, it says that it is criminal to hold out as a lesbian, a gay, a transgender, a transsexual, a queer, a pansexual, an ally, a non-binary, or any other sexual or gender identity. If you look in here, those who identify as questioning and those who identify as intersex have been omitted in this list of offenses. That's why I'm saying people need to pay attention to the fine details in the bill, because we realize that issues of intersex, and we go ahead to provide for that in F, because in F we say that anybody who provides or participates in the provision of a surgical procedure for sex or gender reassignment commits an offense. However, if that is if that is, and there's an exception clause in FIII, it says any other procedure that is intended to create a sexual category other than the sexual category of a person assigned at birth, except, and I'm sure the lady member of parliament will appreciate the exception clause. Once you introduce except in a bill, it's an exception clause, except in the case of correcting a biological anomaly, including intersex. So in our bill, we recognize that. So that's taken care of. It's not an issue at all. Again, when you see the bill creates a hostile environment for homosexuals. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's be clear about one thing. Homosexuality is illegal in Ghana as we speak today. It's not about the bill. In fact, what this bill does, and I had a suggestion by the lady MP that this literally the clause, I think that's clause 22, which prohibits extrajudicial treatment, is inconsequential. Well, unfortunately, it is not. It's very fundamental, because that's the only time that people can actually get legislation. Persons in that community can have legislation that actually protects their rights. What it does not just criminalize physical assault. It even criminalizes verbal abuse. That's how far reaching it goes. So when people, I keep saying that we were very careful. We read the law. We read and met people and understood what it is we want to do. I hear Marie and the point she's made, but you see, I disagree with her when she says you cannot fight LGBTQ. We can fight it, we are fighting it, and we will win that fight against it in Ghana. And I don't know, it was my turn to speak. When the gentleman from Nigeria was speaking, he said things specific to me. I was quiet, I wrote them down. When I was speaking, he interjected me. How me insisting that I should be given the space to speak is aggressive, well, that's Marie's conclusion, and I respect that, but I disagree with that. Now, you see, a few other things, and to the traditional leader, she literally called out the National House of Chiefs and questioned them. The Ghanaian National House of Chiefs, I do not think she's a member of the Ghanaian National House of Chiefs. I doubt she's been gazetted. If she has been gazetted, well, then she holds a very extreme minority view, because and I'm done. And I took very strong exceptions to, I'm a Dangwe boy. I took very strong exceptions to some of the things she said. When she spoke in Ghana and said, when we welcome visitors don't change our customs. And I'm throwing an open challenge to her. Don't read from an LGBTQ pro-LGBTQ manual. This is a public platform. If you can make a categoric statement that there are traditions in Ghana that support and have had homosexuality, it's an open challenge I'm throwing to you, traditional leader or ruler, to state which tradition.
Can I interject here?
Please,
Emmanuel, may I interject?
Your Majesty, allow Sam George to finish. I'll come to you. I'll come to you straight away, please.
Address me properly, and
please.
Also show respect to the other panelists by addressing them by their name, so he can carry on making his.
Thank you. And I think this goes to everybody, all the panelists, with all due respect. All the names are on the screen. We've highlighted all of you. In any case, if you don't know their title, just mention their name as they are. And that will be fine, please. My apologies that we have to interject, but Honorable Sam George, if you can round up so that we take more questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I will run quite a number of things were said, but I'm trying to get the name. Can you, Mr. President, can you please help me with the name for the traditional ruler so I'm clear, because I can't see that on my screen. Can you help me with her name?
Ade MP for Streatham. He's a member of Parliament for Streatham Bell. I think she'll be quite happy if you call her Bell.
Okay.
She'll be quite happy with that. Nachucho Soyo the first. Nachucho Soyo the first. It's a Queen Mother. And we've got Bisi Alimi, who is the advocate from the Nigerian community. Our brothers and sisters.
I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful. So Nachucho Soyo kept on going and saying that we were using the Criminal Offences Act, and that the Criminal Offences Act is a foreign law. Unfortunately, that's completely false. It's a fabrication. In 1960, Ghana had a legislative assembly that had members elected from a 1959 election. That was ruled, and that parliament, the 1960 Legislative Assembly, in 1960, Ghana was an independent state. We had not become a republic yet. We became a republic later that year, But we had a parliament, a legislative assembly that passed this act. This act was not passed by British people. It was passed by a legislative assembly led by the CPP at the time, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's parliament. So don't mislead the public on that. I needed to make that because she kept going on and on about that. It was the British who passed that law. No, the Act 29 is Ghanaian law passed by Ghanaians. Again, let me just make the point that, look, Bell makes the point that the popular opinions and all of that, and that we should allow people to come in here. Yes, but whenever I come into London, I stick to British rules. So there are Ghanaians who are polygamous, but when they get into Britain, do not try to practice their polygamy there because they respect the laws of Britain. So when you come to Ghana, you need to respect our laws and not come and impose your laws. And when you say people travel to Ghana, why? Do they travel to Ghana for sex tourism? Is that the suggestion that our tourism, that it is homosexuals who come to Ghana for tourism? Because you're saying that this is going to affect tourism. Nigeria passed this law 7 years ago. What has happened to Nigeria? Has the UK government not gone into a bilateral trade agreement with Nigeria? I take strong exception to the attempts of blackmailing. That's what this is. Plain blackmail that Ghana will suffer economic consequences. Uganda did not suffer any economic consequences. Nigeria has that law. Why aren't you? Why have you gone to start bilateral, or why do you have post-Brexit negotiations with Nigeria? They even have a law already. So that point is actually moot to the Ghanaian public. And well, we have a government that is heavy on the Ghana Beyond Aid mantra. And so, I mean, there's a lot that was said earlier on, but that we should leave judgments to God. I mean, Bill said we should leave judgments to God and all of that. Then why do we have any criminal laws at all? Why do we have criminal laws? Okay,
Honorable.
And those who say that, prostitution is consensual. That's my very last point, please. Why then do we criminalize incest between consenting adults? Why is incest illegal? Incest is not contractual. Incest is not contractual. Incest is consenting sex when it is between two family members above the age of 16, which is the age of consent for sex. Why do we still criminalize that? So that's the hypocrisy of this argument. I think I'll leave it here because of time, but there's a lot more I would want to respond to.
Thank you, Honorable. Thank you. I want to say that this is not about the panelists. Please, any panel who has expressed a view is not about themselves. It's about the people listening. We have well over 300 people on Zoom, in and out. We have thousands watching on Facebook. So it's about them. So references to individuals are not quite the way we want to go. That is their view, and that is the position they take. But they are doing it in good faith, hoping that they are speaking for somebody who may not be called to speak tonight. So let us all take note of that. If I want to go and allow all the panelists to defend their own statement, as you have put it, Honorable, then there will be no questions at all from the audience. So please, I'm asking my panelists kindly give me a few minutes to call more people so that I'll call you later to articulate your views as well. Because I want to make sure audience are more a priority for us than ourselves. John Tamaklo, please, John. And it has to be brief. If I call you, please be brief. John Tamaklo, if you are with us. Right.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi everyone. So, I've been listening to this and following this conversation for a while now. We've actually held rooms about this on Clubhouse, and I'm afraid that what has been said has been mostly made up legally by what the MP from Ghana, Mr. Nati George, has said. I'm sorry, and I'll tell you what, the Criminal Act 104 specifically does not say homosexuality is an offense. Homosexuality is a different thing altogether. What that law says criminalizes people who are having anal sex or things of that nature under the term unnatural carnal knowledge, which was decided under the case of, which was defined under the case by J.C. Doche. He said it can. You make the argument and you always use the word is. The words he uses are can. You make the same mistakes when you read out the law when it comes to 12.2 of the of our constitution on human rights. It's long, and there are comments, and it says, oh, when you look at 39, is it 39.5? It tells you the rights of human beings are not in Ghana, and persons, not just Ghanaians, not homosexuals, persons, which your bill also recognizes that they are persons, which means your bill also recognizes that people have human rights. And it says those rights are beyond what even the Constitution declares. Anything that's related to a human being, which is inherent to mankind, it's a human right. And that is what we need to understand as human beings. When we talk about human beings, we are talking about their human dignity. That is what the Human Rights Bill or the Act talks about in the Ghanaian Constitution. The Ghanaian Constitution, under Chapter 1, Article 1 and 2, speaks of supremacy of the law. Nobody, even Parliament, cannot override the Constitution. And that is why this bill will not sit in, because the bill contradicts things about equality of the law. The application of the law is not equal under your bill, because what your bill is doing is specifically going for a marginalized group of people, a particular group of people. The law does not allow that. Now, you speak of majority of Ghanaians want this. I'm sorry. When you talk about majority of Ghanaians, what you need to understand is a human right is not, it's a human right. You cannot merge human rights. So even if 100 of us have decided that out of 99 out of 100 have decided that our rights are going to override that one person's right, it will not work. Human rights and our group rights are differentiated rights. Take note of this, please. It is a differentiated rights. Differentiated rights never under legal principles, never ever override the rights of a person. And that is what group rights are. Group rights, people speak generalized, but in actual fact, it's a differentiated human right. Now, when you talk about culture, and you mentioned the, let me see, I just wrote it down on state policy on 39. It talks about education, informal and formal education for culture. That is the only way the state, and that is what I'm saying, the state, not any other, but the state should pass policies through culture by legitimate, how do I even put this? The state can only pass laws with regards to culture. That's what it can do. The state cannot, the state can pass laws when it comes to culture through education, not through law, where we can criminalize. When it comes to culture, it talks about, is it
thank you very much, sir.
Just quickly, 1 second. 26, Article 26 talks about a person who has a right to decide what religion they can have and what culture they can have. No one can decide that for a person. I'm done. If there's more, I'm always here. We've got Eunice here as well, who we are part of the UK legal network, and we can give you all the laws regarding all of this.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. Can I call on Chizilu Emujili? Chizilu Emujili. Am I saying your name right? Forgive me.
Hello, Emujili.
Okay. Could you be brief for us, please? Thank you.
So I am a lawyer from Nigeria. I am part of the legal team currently challenging the SSMPA, the equivalent, the Nigerian equivalent of what's going on in Ghana. So I just have 2 questions for Honorable Sam Judge. I was wondering whether this bill does not is not against Article 21(1) of the Ghanaian Constitution, because I had a quick check, and before that, the bill is prohibiting or criminalizing advocacy for LGBT rights. So, and according to your own constitution, it says that everybody has the freedom of association, which includes freedom to form or join trade unions or other associations, national, international, for the protection of their interests. So if you pass this bill, will it not contravene the provisions of Section 21(1) of your constitution? And quickly, the second question is, the Honorable made several mentions of polygamy. And I was wondering whether there is a law in the UK or in the West that criminalizes advocacy for polygamy. If there is, please, we would like to know about that. Thank you.
Thank you. I will give the panelists a moment to please attend to some of the issues Please be brief, don't be personal. It's about the bill, not yourself. And as long as your statement is accurate about the bill, let's focus on the bill, please. Please, I will take on Bisi to speak, and then I'll come to Bell, and then I'll come to Her Majesty to speak, and then we'll take a round of questions, and then Honorable Sam George can conclude. We'll take another set of questions. I'm determined to finish at 10 o'clock, but it looks quite unlikely, but we have to try and do something about this. So please, Bisi, if you can be brief with us, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll be very brief, but I will also want to take a permission after this to please go to bed. It's till 11 here, and I'm really struggling to keep my eyes open. So I hope that you will give me that permission. First of all, I want to say that tonight, a speaker has deliberately refused to acknowledge and respect my name. And in that process, has refused to acknowledge me as a person, has insulted me, and has called me out, and has insulted my person. So I wanted to put it out there. Secondly, a panelist here devolved information about my HIV status without my permission to over 200 people in this room that do not know me or know about my HIV status before now. So I wanted to put that out before I continue. But I'm going to be very brief because some of the things that I want to say have been said before. Section 104 Act 29 of the law in Ghana is the same as Section 241, I think 214, 216, 217 of Nigeria. It's the same as 317, I think 317 or 311 of India. The same law pops up in Pakistan. The same law is everywhere in the world where you speak English language. The law originated from Queen Victoria. So, Your Majesty, you are very, very correct. And it saddens me that a person that wants to pass a law to criminalize something does not even know the law. And that pains me, it scares me. And it gives me even more issue why we Africans need to be more intentional about the people that were sent into our House of Parliament. And this is not a personal attack. I also want to say something. 18% was used to say that gay men carry the burden of HIV in Ghana. That figure is actually correct. 18% of gay men in Ghana are HIV positive. However, what is the number of that 18%? Because anybody can play politics with words. Let's assume, and this is not a fact because I don't want to go into it, that 18% is about 100 gay men in Ghana that are HIV positive. However, amongst heterosexuals, it is 1%. That 1% is 1 million of heterosexuals in Ghana. So ask yourself this question: who is putting the burden of HIV on the health sector in Ghana? The answer is simple. Go home and do your math. But why, like I said earlier, when I talk about mental health, that I am not suffering from mental health because I'm gay. I'm suffering from mental health because the system is putting the burden on me. Gay men don't contract HIV because they are gay. Most especially in Africa, gay men contract HIV because the system that is supposed to take care of their sexual health is denying them access. I was 29 when I was diagnosed with HIV. I don't hide it because it's not something that I'm ashamed of, but it's something that my country is ashamed of. It's a shame that my country will live with for as long as me and people like me are forced into a situation where we don't have access to adequate sexual health education. We don't have access to public health services that will inform us on how to have safer sex, that will drive us to have sex in a very dangerous way that is not self-fulfilling for us. So if anybody comes here and try to use my HIV status to shame me, I am sorry. You are 15 years too late, because I leave my HIV status publicly. But the difference between you and I is I am not ashamed of my status. When was the last time you got tested? I am not ashamed of my status. I can stand here and I can say it, because the knowledge that I have about my status, the knowledge that LGBT gay men, the knowledge that gay men have about their status in Ghana is an advantage that cannot be taken away from them. And finally, and I will shut up, the money that is provided to take care and provide ARV for gay men and men who have sex with men, and most people who are living with HIV in Ghana, comes from the Global Fund. And it is intentional when you say this money comes from the Ghanaian government, because it's the same language that was used by the Nigerian government to say, oh, look, the money that we're supposed to use to build roads, the money that we're supposed to use to provide education is the money that we're spending on gay men to provide healthcare for them. Let us criminalize them. But the point is this: if you send me to jail for 14 years, be it known to you or to anyone else that is supporting this bill, you can't change who I am. Because after my time in jail, I will still come back to be me. What you're trying to say that you have not said, to everyone in this room, that something people need to take home is what happened in Uganda. You want to hang us. You want to kill us because you know you can't change us. And the moment you lock us up and we come back and we're still the same, you have to find a means to exterminate us. It will get there because that is the plan. And this is why everybody needs to be ashamed. And finally, I'm going to stop this. Honorable Samuel George, you cannot shame the shameless. Thank you.
Thank you, Bisi. I may have to say that the bill is not Sam George bill. Sam George is one of the many MPs supporting the bill. He just happened to be somebody passionate about it and happy to come and talk about it. But from the bill that I received, there are more names to it than Sam George. So let's not make it Sam George bill that is going to go down history as his only name on it. So let's realize that and let's not make it personal to him. He's only explaining things to us as it's written. Please, MP Bell, please, if you want to have anything to add to what you've heard so far from the audience.
Yes, I certainly have some comments to make, and thank you very much for coming back to me. Just to touch on a few things the Honourable Sam George said. Firstly, he made a point about me mentioning religion. I mentioned religion because I am a Christian, and actually, you also mentioned religion. I believe you even quoted the Bible, and you have not been shy about discussing the religious support that you have for this bill. And since you haven't been shy about discussing the religious support for this bill, I don't understand why it is an issue for me to talk about religion. You also made a point about polygamy, and do correct me if I'm wrong. It's my understanding, and that people coming into this country, they leave their polygamy at the door. But it's my understanding polygamy is actually illegal under civil law in Ghana. Whilst it might be legal under customary law, it's my understanding it's illegal under civil law. Do correct me if I'm wrong. And you talked a lot about morality in your case of religion. That's why I made reference to different issues. We talk about morality, and a lot of times our morality is linked with our religion. This is the same across countries, right across the world, including the country which we find ourselves in now, which is why I asked why we would not then go on to look at other commandments from the Bible and perhaps legislate against men cheating on their wives, because that is, as much as a part of what men are doing with their anatomy as you want to discuss in this bill. And finally, well, actually, just 2 more points to yourself. You talked about not reading the bill. Now, I'd like to touch on this because this is a comment that's made to me quite often. It's usually by some of my older white male counterparts in the House of Commons. And I want to assure you that in order to be a member of Parliament in the United Kingdom, reading is a prerequisite. So I can read. I did read. I didn't enjoy it. I also read the commentary of the bill. I didn't enjoy that. And my opinions still remain the same. So you can be confident that I understand what it is that you're talking about. And finally, please do not accuse me of blackmail. I came to you, quite frankly, with very, very clear analysis. And this is not my own analysis of what the impact could be. Some countries have felt it. Perhaps it hasn't been noticed so much, but there are various studies that show that there can be an economic impact, and there can be various other impacts. If you pass this law in Ghana, we'll have a situation people from Ghana could quite legitimately claim rights in other countries for fear of persecution. And if you do not think that people claiming asylum rights in the UK or any other country has an impact on people who are applying for visas to that country, then you have no understanding of the international relations and immigration relations that have been developing over the past few years. It will cause people are having to leave Ghana because of your disastrous bill. Forget about the moral implications of it, of having them feel like they're having to leave their home, but the international implications as well. So I'd ask you to consider that too. And Bisi has, of course, already touched on the fact that the legislation that already exists on homosexuality is actually something that's come quite clear from old UK law. On some that were made, just to agree with the gentleman from the Ghana Legal Network, I believe that yes, again, this bill does empower the abuse and infringement of the constitutional rights, human rights of Ghanaians. I maintain that, and as does somebody who has better even knowledge that group of lawyers as myself. And I think it was Marie Boadu who talked about violent language, and I do have to touch on that again. And presentation. I think what she said was very, very important. It's very, very difficult, and we can't just claim that what law is passed in Ghana has no implications on international standing, on how people view us internationally and anything else. I think that is completely wrong. And the way in which it is presented is very, very problematic. And as I said, threatening to beat other ambassadors and commissioners from other countries is not a suitable way, I think, to engage in this argument, and could eventually see repercussions on other Ghanaians in other countries. And I think you need to be very, very careful about that. And also, of course, as Mr. Yemo said, was talking about the issues of sexual abuse against children. The reality of the situation is that the percentage of LGBT people in Ghana is low. Bisi touched on that, the percentage, and therefore, just as with all other crimes, the reality is the majority of said crimes are going to be committed by heterosexual people. And it's same with and again, this is not a crime, same with the transmission of HIV. The majority will be amongst heterosexual people. And wouldn't it make more sense if we're looking at crimes against persons, we're looking at crimes against children, that we're tackling the deep-rooted issues, not targeting one very minority community? And if we're looking at issues of health and the spread of HIV, which is very, very crucial, and as I said, it's just that we're looking at proper sexual education, so that people understand what they are meant to do if they engage in a sexual relationship to protect themselves, instead of, again, demonizing one individual community. And I do have to say that the way you spoke to Bisi was not appropriate, and the way you called him out was not appropriate. It's something that people would frown on quite widely, and I think you'll find following this that there may be very, very many issues with that, and many people will take issues that you don't do that when somebody suffers from HIV. You'll be well aware of the amount of stigma that is faced around it, and I think to do it in that way was quite impolite. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Belle. Thank you. Honorable Sam George, I'll come to you, but before I do, I will let Her Majesty Nachocho also respond. And then I will take 3 or 4 sets of questions. We will deal with that, and I'm afraid we have to round it up. And reassemble again if need be. I know my audience will slaughter me for it, those who have raised your hand, but we cannot be here for 5 hours. That's the fact. So Her Majesty, please take over.
Mr. Quayson, thank you very much. And I must say I'm going to disappoint you a little bit because I will need to address Honorable Sam George just very briefly. And I'm glad MP Bell has touched on that. There is an appropriate way to deal with people in a debate, and there is an inappropriate way to deal with people in a debate. And I understand your passion to defend what is essentially your baby. I understand completely. But what you do not do, and what we're not going to do, is disrespect my office as a traditional ruler and disrespect other panelists, which is exactly what you have done. And I have to say, I have a lot of respect for you, but I am very disappointed in your attitude tonight. Having said that, let's focus on the bill. I reiterate, I quoted section 17 and 18 in particular. In all this conversation, there is the blurred lines. In fact, I said the lines have not been blurred. It has been obliterated between harm to a person and choice. The bill seeks to expand criminality to encompass a wide section of people. And it also seeks to prohibit a section of the population from adopting on the basis and on the assumption that by being LGBTQ, automatically they would cause harm to that child. So it says we're protecting the children, and therefore we're asking the courts to prohibit these people from adoption. And I want to dwell on that, and then I'll go back to the cultural aspect before I round up. Now, what you must do, what most countries do when people go to adopt, is to vet the individuals concerned. Are these people criminals? Are they, by criminal, I don't mean within the context of Ghanaian law. And again, we've all established that this is a colonial law, the 1960 Criminal Offences Act, Section 104. It is a colonial law, and you may do well to read up on it properly. What most countries do is to vet individuals and to identify whether that child is potentially going to be harmed by that individual based on the people's history. There are people in our society who are upstanding citizens, law-abiding citizens, people who are highly respected human beings who may identify as LGBTQ, who may want to see those children who I advocate for walking in the streets and walking to school without shoes, those children who may have lost parents, those children who don't have guardians, those children who are being abused by heterosexual men and women. They may want to adopt them and give them a better life. And you're saying these upstanding citizens must be criminalized to the point of prohibiting them from giving a child a fair chance in life simply because you have an aversion to the way they've chosen to lead their life. An aversion to something, something offending your sensibilities does not automatically make it criminal. And when you say, I have to tell you, shouting about something loud enough does not make it true. Shouting about something loud enough does not make it true. So when you shout, you can shout as much as possible, but common sense tells me that until somebody has actually caused harm or until an act is going to cause harm to another person, you cannot turn around and say it is criminal. So the law that we have at the moment, if I had my way, that would change. If I had my way, that would change. And it would change to see humans as either bad people or good people. Because I'm going to repeat, the heterosexual individual is equally as capable of causing harm to another person as an LGBTQ person. And I, for one, have seen many instances of heterosexuals doing this. And before you challenge me on the whether my cultural identity, I want to educate you. And being a lawmaker, you should understand this. I am a very proud queen, an African queen and a Ghanaian queen. And I hold my culture very, very dear. Now, here's the thing about a gazette. It is an administrative instrument. A gazette does not a king or a queen make. So if you think and it's a mark of a very poor debater who resorts to inferences and insults when they have nothing coherent to offer. And I am disappointed because I've always seen you as a learned person. So if you sought to embarrass me by inferring that I am probably not gazetted because I have challenged the National House of Chiefs, you are absolutely wrong. And I will say it again, a gazette does not a king or a queen make. It is merely an administrative instrument for order and for politicians to be able to know who to go to and who not to go to. Finally, I do belong to the traditional institution. I am a proud queen or queen mother. I make no bones about it. But what I do have is a conscience. And I will not, I'd rather be unpopular than sit here, look into my conscience and say it is okay to ostracize a human being merely for making a choice about how they enjoy their sexual pleasure. And I dare say that this bill that you're proposing to expand may come back to haunt all of us. Because God forbid I choose or anybody chooses in a heterosexual relationship, as I have enunciated earlier, to enjoy sexual pleasure in a way that you and other people consider unnatural. They would be criminals. God forbid someone should say, let's look at this from a human perspective. They become automatically a promoter of LGBTQ rights and an ally of LGBT. Therefore, they're criminals. That makes me, a traditional ruler sitting here talking today, a criminal. Finally, I hold my tradition very dear. When I go to Queen Elizabeth's court, I give her respect. When you see your traditional representative and you disrespect them in public, it says a lot about you and about what you're promoting your culture, your tradition as. And I feel very disrespected, and therefore I'm very disappointed in you. Emmanuel.
Put me back on. Thank you. Thank you. Zoom. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nachocho Soyo. The first, Honorable Sam George, your comment, please, from everything else.
I hope, Mr. Quayson, you've seen the differences that the fact that several words have been used and several suggestions have been made and emotional keyboards have been played. But anybody who suggests that a gazette is just an administrative tool and has no value, really, and I'm being told to go and learn, but that's fine. I'd leave it at that, okay? But for me to say, and I'm a proud Dangwe boy, and I challenge anyone who says they're custodian of the Dangwe tradition to show me which part of our tradition supports homosexuality. That's all I'm asking. That is not disrespecting you. That is holding you to what you claim to hold dear, holding you to it, holding you to account for it. So that in itself is not disrespect to it. Those emotional keyboards.
No, Mr. George, the way you spoke to her was disrespect to her. And I'd like to make clear that you are not the only other Gar on this call. You are not the only other Gar on this call.
Right. Please,
are we going to have this happen again?
Can we, thank you for your submission, but can we allow...
constantly keep interjecting me, and that is not seen as disrespectful. That is seen as respectful.
That's the only time I've interjected you. Just once. Just once I've interjected you.
I didn't say you alone. Every other panelist has interjected me.
Right.
And they are the respectful ones. I have been quiet, but I'm disrespectful.
Please, everyone has had the chance to speak, and Honorable Sam George will equally have the chance to react to whatever has been said. I don't want, as I said always, I don't want this to be about Sam George. It's about the issue that we are discussing. I've said that this bill is not Sam George bill. He's one of the many people who have appended their signature to the bill, and hence why the speaker has accepted to get it debated at some point. So let's make it clear. He's here with us, and I'm sure this situation will not put him off. Honorable, I will need you back, because the right thing for you to do is to reassemble and carry on telling us what the bill is all about. And I hope when I invite you, this situation won't put you off. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. On the issue of polygamy in Ghana, polygamy is illegal under the civil law, but it is legal under customary law. So every individual has the right to choose what you want to do. If you want to be polygamous, you don't go under the civil law. You go under the customary law. But that opportunity doesn't exist. And I use that to answer the question that was asked by, I think it was, someone asked a question, I think it's a lawyer from Nigeria, about which law in the West. Canada has a law. Under that law, two gentlemen were jailed. Mr. Blackmore and Mr. Ullman were jailed. And under the Canadian law for polygamy, you can go to jail. The maximum penalty is 5 years in jail in Canada. So that is just based on the question that was asked me, which law does exist. Again, the gentleman, I don't remember his name, but he introduced himself as a lawyer from Nigeria, I believe, who said it was part of those challenging the case. He read Article 21 of Ghana's constitution to me and said that does the bill not infringe on those provisions? But what he did was to read Article 21.1, and Article 21 is the general fundamental freedoms. He reads Article 21.1 and says that it gives you the rights to association and the rights to freedom of expression. Very true. But go ahead and read Article 21.2, the same article. It says a restriction on a person's freedom of movement by his lawful detention, lawful detention shall not be held to be inconsistent with or in contravention of this article. So if you are lawfully detained, it shall not be in contravention of your fundamental human rights and given to you in 21.1. Again, if you even go as far as 21.4, it says that nothing in or done under the authority of a law, and when it says a law, it means an act of parliament, because it doesn't say of this constitution. It says nothing in or done under the authority of a law shall be held to be inconsistent with or in contravention of this article, which is the article that gives the fundamental human rights that are being touted, to the extent that the law in question makes provision. And I'll read C, that's 21.4C, for the imposition of restrictions that are reasonably required in the interest of defense, public safety, public health, or the running of essential services. This has public health considerations. That is our contention, and that's the case we're making before Parliament. International implications. Every action has international implications. And the Honorable Bill has repeatedly made references to my comments about the Australian High Commissioner. Yes, and I pull no punches on that, because the Australian High Commissioner himself threatened me. He threatened me with arrest if I set foot in any Western country. So he issues threats, and that is fine. And let's be very clear, ambassadors and high commissioners are welcome in host countries, but their operations in host countries are regulated by Article 41 of the Vienna Convention, which says that they cannot meddle in local domestic politics and affairs. So yes, they are there to promote the rights of their countries, but it must be done without interfering in the local legislation or local politics of their host country. You will not see the Ghanaian High Commissioner to the UK engaging in a demonstration or going on radio to speak for the promotion of polygamy in the UK. That is something you will not be done. I was asked when I checked my status last. Well, I do my checks quite every 6 months. So the last time I did it was in July, and I'm quite clear on that one. Issues about calling someone out and putting information out. This is public information. This is not confidential information. This is not information that is not out there in the public. I simply did a Wikipedia, a Google search of an individual gives a, my profile you read today, Mr. Quayson, did not come from me. I never gave you a profile of myself. You picked that profile possibly off the internet. And that's how come I even said to you that that profile referenced my election 5 years ago. Didn't reference my election last year, my 2020 election. Okay, but that's fine because you did a Google search of me. A Google search of the gentleman raised that point. So how is that a breach of privacy? That is not private information. It's not confidential information, and I've not called him out in any way. And I don't see why anybody must be worried about the consequences of their actions. Actions have consequences. When you embrace an action, you must be ready to stand up for the consequences of those actions. Now, I'm asked, why don't we talk about other morality laws, adultery and co? But I haven't seen any group of people. And like I said, this law is not a morality law. It's a cultural-based law. We're not passing. You can't legislate morality, but you can legislate culture on the back of Article 39 of the Constitution. And that's why we've had legislations that have strengthened the hand of the National House of Chiefs by acts of parliament to strengthen the chieftaincy institution. Okay, and that is why even Parliament is able to pass appropriation to ensure that part of the District Assembly Common Fund, we're having conversations that part of the District Assembly Common Fund should be used to fund the Chieftaincy Act or the operations of the chieftaincy institution. Now, on the point about other morality things, like I said, again, I have not seen persons engaged in other acts of immorality clamoring for recognition and acceptance as a norm in society. I'm yet to see a group of people clamoring and saying that adultery should be made a right and that adultery is a right. And I asked the question about incest and why incest between two consenting family members, adults, is still illegal even under British law and under many laws in the West. Why are we desegregating that? Don't they also have rights? Is it not a consensual sexual engagement? Okay, so these are points that we need to understand. And look, I'll wrap up here because I mean time is fast spent, and we can't have all say everything we wanted to say. But look, Ghana is minded by its international obligations, and I keep saying, if the LGBTQ group think that they have a case to be made, they should table it before the UN General Assembly and let's have a vote on it. But when people try to come in on the back of conventions, pick those conventions. And let's be reminded, international treaties and conventions are subject to national laws. Well, that's how it is in Ghana. The laws of Ghana are supreme to international treaties and conventions. Insofar as those conventions are in conflict with the dictates of our constitution, those conventions and those treaties will be held to be null and void. Because the last point I'll make here, respectfully, is that look, a lot has been said to suggest as though when someone accuses you, you are thrown into jail. No. Criminal liability can only be established by prosecution in a competent court of jurisdiction. So yes, anybody can wake up and make an accusation. However, the only time someone will face penalties is when you can establish actus reus and mens rea in a competent court of jurisdiction. And that's clear. And that's clear in the law. So it is not as though passing the law automatically means people are just going to be picked from their rooms and thrown in jail because somebody has made an allegation. He who alleges must prove. Our criminal jurisprudence in Ghana puts the burden of proof on the prosecution, on he who is alleged, because everyone who is arrested, if this bill becomes law and becomes an act of parliament and is being operationalized, everyone who is arrested on the basis of an allegation of committing an offense under clause 6 of the bill as it stands today is innocent until proven guilty before a court of competent jurisdiction. So this attempt to paint a picture that people are just going to be picked on the basis of allegations from their rooms and thrown in jail, that's not Ghana. That's not who we are. It will be subjected. We recognize one thing. Persons who are engaged in homosexuality have a fundamental human right to a fair trial. That's the fundamental human rights they have. A fair trial before a competent court of jurisdiction. And that they must get. It is on the basis of that we introduced clause 22 to say that extrajudicial treatment, which is not a trial before a competent court of jurisdiction, will attract up to 3 years in jail. So, I mean, this discussion can go on for as long, but as others have stated, their constituencies and their obligations towards their constituencies, so do I have an obligation towards the constituency I represent in Ghana. And that constituency is the overwhelming majority of Ghanaians that believe that we should have a law that tightens action criminalizing homosexuality.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Honorable. We have a small poll, a poll of 5 questions. As Ghanaian diasporans, we also have a say in this, and we will do this poll quickly, and then we will return to the rounding up. Please take a minute to answer these questions for us so that it will form part of our discussion today. There is no names will be recorded. Your details will not be part of it. We just want to see of the 990 plus people watching around on Zoom and others on Facebook. If you can have access to it, please answer this for us. While the poll is going on, if Honorable Ribeiro, if you have something to share, we will do the closing statement from now. Just 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes, a minute of closing statement from each of the panel. My audience, my apologies, but it's coming up to 10:30. That's far too long for a function that's supposed to be 2 hours. So I thank you for being with us, but we will do a closing statement. I do promise that if all my panelists will agree, we need another session on just Q&A without going into presentations so that people will have the opportunity to ask questions. So Honorable Sam George, please look out for my request again, and I'm sure you will do the right thing as a public servant to reappear, irrespective of all the bruises or all the occupational hazard that has come with it. I'm sure we all face it from time to time, and this will not deter you from engaging with the Ghanaian diaspora community in UK. Honorable Bell, thank you for the 2 to 3 hours or more than that you have spent after such a lengthy day in the Commons. Thank you. I'm grateful. Her Majesty, thank you so much for all the time you spent and all the views you've expressed and all the information you've given us. Thank you. Bisi, I believe, has logged off, but by all means, we are grateful for his time and the presentation he's given us. I will give all of you a minute to do your closing remarks, please, while the poll is going on, so that we don't take more time after that. Honorable Bell, please.
Thank you very much, and I'll try as hard as possible to keep to my time. I'd just like to thank everybody for the time they've taken to listen in on this call and for the views that they've shared. And I wish you could have shared more, and I do hope we have that further session. Just to say, it's so important, especially as people in the diaspora and especially as people that face discrimination in the diaspora, that we consider what it is when people face discrimination elsewhere. And for those in Ghana, it's not about imposing anything on Ghana or anybody coming from any other country to say X, Y, or Z in Ghana. It's very much what people believe Ghanaian values to be right across the world, which is one of inclusivity, which is one of diversity, which is values of acceptance. And as I said, and it's not blackmail and it's not scaremongering. Passing a bill like this will have serious ramifications for Ghana. I love Ghana, and I don't want to see it go down this route. I don't want to see other Ghanaians, and that is the LGBT community in Ghana, suffer for people's prejudice. It's completely unnecessary. There is no need for this bill. This bill does not benefit Ghanaians in any way. It does not solve the major problems that Ghana has. And I do hope that whilst it's going to take a lot of time that perhaps could be used elsewhere, I do hope it does not see its way through the passage of Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, Her Majesty.
Thank you, Emmanuel. I'd like to say what I said earlier is that your aversion to something, your dislike of something only means you have a right to choose to disengage from that thing. It does not automatically make that thing criminal. We must look at this proposed bill very carefully. We must be careful what it is we're wishing for, because we might just get it. When we do, we may end up not liking the implications and the results of it. Chano Manyaba.
Thank you. Honorable Sam George, please.
Thank you very much. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have engaged on this subject. It was supposed to be for 2 hours. We've done 3.5 hours. I just want to say that as far as I'm convinced in my mind, and from the evidence that's been made available to me from the research team that we work with, this bill is in the best interest of Ghana. It's in the best customer, and it's going to serve generations in Ghana. This unmanned bill that's going to act as something that other countries seeking account we see, where they're trying to walk back the path years will come to learn from. Suggestions were made earlier about the fact that you cannot pass legislation against a specific group of individuals. Well, that's not correct. We have the Vigilantism and Other Offences Act in Ghana, Act 999, targeting a particular group of individuals, a very small group of individuals. I was part of the Cybersecurity Act that was passed just in 2020, also targeting a specific group of persons. So, and we've got this kind of legislations all about, legislation that oppose fundamental extreme religious beliefs and all of that. So ultimately, debates continue in Parliament with the public hearings, and we to put together each report, and hopefully by the time first session next year, we should have the committee's report, and then we will go through the clause by clause amendments. One thing I would state is, for everyone who is interested in this bill, the opportunity for memos have passed. However, there's still an opening for amendments to be filed. And so if you think you feel strongly about something, reach out to an MP of your choice and let that MP sponsor an amendment for you, and let's have a debate on it in Parliament. I'm clear in my mind that this bill would definitely pass with the amendments that will be made, because no bill ever comes to Parliament and passes in the way in which it came. But I'm hopeful that all in all, our service to Mother Ghana will not be in vain.
Thank you. Just to share the results with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sam George. Just to share the results with you all, I'll put it on the Ghanaian Community Awareness Forum website, Facebook platform for all of you to see, but just so you have an idea. As a Ghanaian, what is your position on the draft anti-LGBTQ plus bill being considered by Ghana's Parliament? 48% are in favor and 52% are strongly against it. As a Ghanaian, would you consider the passing of the anti-gay bill by Ghana's Parliament as a breach of human rights? 53% said yes, 42% said no. In your opinion, do you believe the Ghanaian society is adequately prepared to adopt LGBTQ persons and their related activities? 23% said yes, 58% said no. They're not prepared. And 19 said they're not sure. Do you believe Ghana is adequately prepared to deal with any adverse effect on Ghana's international relations in areas of trade, investment with countries that hold opposing views with the passing of the anti-LGBT bill? 34% said yes, Ghana is prepared, and 54% said no, we are not prepared to deal with the repercussions. As a Ghanaian, would you consider it an infringement on Ghana's sovereignty if the United Nations or any other nation state imposed its LGBTQ views and practices on Ghana's sovereignty state? Yes, 71% said yes, they will see it as an infringement on Ghana by them, and 24% said no. 5 said no, not sure. So thank you for those who took part. It gives a mixed view, and I'm grateful to all of you. That is all time will allow us. Time has allow us more than we needed. But again, I will call on my panelists. Please respond to my question, my request if I call you again, because I definitely need to have a repeat. Honorable Sam George, I can see you smiling, but you have to come back. It is what we do in public life. You have to take you on the chin.
I'm just jumping. We're supposed to have started the post-budget workshops, and this is really dragging. I hope that next time you invite me, we stick to the time. But it was fun. It was fun.
Yes, it's just that the passion around the topic has made it so. And I guess you can see there's so many people's hands up that we couldn't call. Thank you, my panelists, for your time. It's been a valuable time. I'm sure your community appreciates you for spending this time with us. Thank you, the audience, for coming. For all of you who have spent time to interact with the panelists, thank you. And those who couldn't have the chance, please don't be disheartened. We will call this topic again early part of next year. And by that time, I'm sure we would have known to what extent it's going, and we can have much more views. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening, a very good weekend, and be well. Stay safe. Thank you. Thank you.
At World Remit, we understand what the journey is about. How it can sometimes take a little distance to bring us